roll, or are we good?
I can, yep.
Ready when you are.
The workshop for Saturday, October 5th, 2024 is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Calhoun.
Here.
Councilmember Bergen. Here. Councilmember Coombs.
Present.
Councilmember Gardner. Councilmember Hancock. Here. Councilmember Drinsky. Here. Councilmember Lawson. Here. Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Mario.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Zvonek.
Here.
Discussion of budget rules for the day.
Okay, so for,
No punching, scratching, or biting.
thank you, sir, that's right. That's right. So I'll have Greg real quick. We sent you all a bunch of information over the last few days. We'll walk you through what we sent you, and then just kind of walk you through the mechanics of the day.
Absolutely. So what you've received in the last couple days, you've got an agenda. You've all got an agenda in front of you. We sent you the response packet for the questions from the presentation. So now you've gotten two packets from us. One's for the one-on-ones and one's for the presentation. We also last night sent out a copy of, as a request from council, we sent out a copy of the vacancies. And gosh, I think that's.
So typical rules of the day will go by sort of groups. So we've got council and commission appointees first, and then we were going to do Roberto's group. We've got those departments listed out. Typically, that's your chance to ask any questions you've got. If there's any changes you want for that part of the budget, what we'll do is we'll take notes, and then if there's 5 folks that are interested in that change, we'll put it on the board, and then when we get through all of the departments, we'll go back to things on the board, and at that point, it will take 6 votes to keep something on the board and make that change in the budget. So that's how we've always done it in the past. If that's still okay, that's the way we would approach it today. And then I think any other, the day is yours, so any other questions or concerns from council before we jump in?
The day or the morning?
Again, it is yours, so you tell us, ma'am.
So we will have breakfast tomorrow morning.
Delivered.
There we go. Okay, item number 2A.
So we'll start with city attorney. It's on, if you're following along, either in your budget book or online. It's page F20. So that's, we'll start with the city attorney. So any questions or changes for the city attorney's
We want
budget?
the real city attorney.
Too soon, sir, too soon. Wow.
Not a wannabe.
Fair enough.
So obviously here for questions, any issues?
I'll just wait, we'll see, yeah.
You're gonna make this really easy. This is good. This is
Good start,
You're
Jack.
setting the start.
Pete, appreciate you both. Thank you. Thank you, council. We've got Matt here for Civil Service Commission, again on F27.
Good morning. The real administrator couldn't make it, so. No amendments other than what's proposed. Here to say good morning and answer any questions.
Any questions?
I have one. Where's that savings come from 24 to 25?
So does that reflect the,
That's back to the projections for,
so is it going down from projection? So yeah.
it's going down from the projection to the proposed.
Proposed.
Right. We're over budget this year from volume standpoint of testing. It's going back to the projected volume for next year, and
So
that's
this
what
is a
the
good news
projected-
story where sometimes being over budget's a bad thing. This is a good news story in the sense that the reason civil service is over is because we've had higher volumes of testing. So when folks take more tests, they're taking the online Civil Service Commission test, we have to pay for that, and that means that, you know, it's over what we projected. So that's a good news story that we've got more folks applying.
Cool.
Further questions? Discussion? Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Court administration.
Good morning. Candace Atkinson, Court Administrator, Detention Director. We're pretty much where we need to be. We have a little bit of extra overtime because we're getting fully staffed in the detention center. We started a very intense training program, so we're seeing a little bit of increase there, but we're changing it so that we can track it and come up with a budget for training, so we're working on that. That we're working on is a change to our building, and we're working with Jason and his team to improve the security for our front entrance, so we'll probably be coming with a supplemental, probably around a little bit more than $1 million, because we have $1 million set aside, so that's what we're working on.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Jones.
On probation, this is what's currently projected with DVs still in the city right now. We're looking for that to go down, right?
We, yes, and that's why we have one current open positions that we're not filling. We're doing it with the VHBE because we know we're going to have to downsize that department.
Yeah.
So we figure we'll downsize that department by 3 or 4 after the numbers in probation start going down.
When will
So
that
we'll
be?
start
Because I'd
watching.
like to just get those FTEs off the books.
You know, I think we can start like mid-year of next year.
Okay.
You know, I mean, looking at it, but I think it'll probably be a year and a half before we fully make the.
But we can anticipate a large chunk of this almost 1.2 million will go down.
A large chunk of it, yes,
Yeah.
but we still will have probation. It's about
Of course.
78% of our cases.
Yeah, we got to have them on
So-
probation for the shoplifting, absolutely.
That's right, and the motor vehicle. theft.
That's right.
Yeah.
How many officers
Thank you.
are you short?
Well, we have 6. We have 2 out on FMLA and then 1 position. So we're currently running with half staff.
In probation.
In probation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, total?
Detention.
I was still.
I'm sorry, detention.
In detention, we, on your report, we have 3, but we just had somebody resign, so 4. So it's, but we're doing much better thanks to our HR team. We've been able to almost be fully staffed several times, so we'll keep working on it.
Further questions?
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Combs.
So with respect to the technology kind of answers that were provided, I think the conversation was with providing the, I think, 700,000 last year, that we would try to find some kind of a solution that wasn't an in-house solution. Is that what's being done with the modernization of the courts and case management system, is getting something off the shelf, or is it something that's still the in-house court IT built solution?
We actually, when we started going down the road, we found out, and I don't know if Scott Newman is here, but there you are. We found, as we were looking at it, that our system is very integrated with several other systems. So if we made it an off-the-shelf, it would cost millions of dollars to the city because we would break some of our connections. So we decided to stay in-house, but we're going to a platform that is maintainable by anybody, so it's web-based. So we're working towards that and making really, good strides on that. And that way we don't break any connections to the city attorney, to the police department, other places in the city.
Okay, so are those other pieces in-house solutions that were that system is connected to? Those are things that are also built within the city?
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. I thought we were trying to get away from that,
Yeah.
but,
We were, and that was our intention, but, we don't want to make a decision that costs the city more money than what we had anticipated. And with all the changes in technology and going to web-based programs, it's a lot easier to maintain and for everyone to maintain. We don't need somebody specialized, so we're moving away from that. I think, I can't even remember how many platforms he's already changed, but we're well on our way. We're going to be on Court 23 here in the next few weeks, so that'll be a big change for us.
and then with respect to that program and that system, from a transparency standpoint, what is the accessibility of that information to individuals who may be defendants trying to look up their information? Like, who has access, and are we providing that access comparable to, say, the state or other courts in terms of data access?
Yes, we're working on that. We have our docket online, but we want it to be a little bit more than that. And it depends on, the person or the entity and what what access they get. Because we do provide reports and we're a pass-through for the city attorney, so we wouldn't want to provide that information. So we're setting it up so that it depends on who the person is, the entity, and working with our attorneys to figure out, how much we can put online and if, what the access is going to look like. But we're working towards that.
And then just one more with respect to the digital courtrooms, the virtual courtrooms. How do you anticipate that affecting cases in Arapahoe, Adams, other places that we are working with?
Well, currently, we have offered to do virtual appearances with Arapahoe. We already have a relationship with them, and we've opened it up to Adams as well. As we work through that, there's some concerns with pre-trial services and that type of thing. So at this point, we're in talking and we're open to it, but we have not settled on anything.
Okay, so if folks are charged in those other courts, for example, for DVs, then officers will still be driving folks to, maybe that's a question for you, Jason. Officers will need to drive folks to Adams, Arapahoe, potentially Douglas.
Yeah, we're already making trips right now, so I think we're currently booking folks into our detention facility, even if I think we're going to take them ultimately to Arapahoe and Adams, and I think this would just be, we would add to that volume of folks. I can't, Sean.
Well, currently, if we arrest somebody and it's only on their charges, they come up and pick them up, but if we're on our way there, we take them anyways. So that's something that we're working with the counties, especially Arapahoe, because of the increase in the volume. Trying to work with them because they don't have as much staff to pick up as often. So we're still trying to figure that out. We have till July, but we're in talks on how to figure that out. But we're trying to minimize the direct booking as much as we can because we want our officers on the street. So we're also working with the police department to figure that out.
Okay, so have they expressed that we can book folks into our jail and then have them transported if we stop prosecuting DVs here in Aurora?
So, Councilmember Cribbs, so Candace called me this week about that issue, and I reached out to the sheriff of Arapahoe County, and we asked that question, right? What could we do to avoid the driving and the issues about transporting prisoners? He mentioned that he's going to figure out a way to put with our cooperation to try to put a couple terminals from the county in our jail and then cross-deputize our marshals as deputy Bs for the Arapahoe County. So in essence, when the officers come to the detention facility, they're going to be direct booked into the Arapahoe County jail. So when they do get transported, instead of having to wait while all the prisoners get booked in, it's just a change of location. So everything's going to be done at our detention facility, so it'll prevent those officers from having to drive to at least Centennial for Arapahoe County. We have not talked to Adams County or Douglas County yet, but I know Arapahoe County we talked about was 80% of the prisoners.
Does that require a policy change, a change in ordinance or a resolution?
No, it depends on, we'll probably have an IGA with the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think policy questions, obviously we can deal with those separately than just a budgetary question, yes.
Yeah, just one follow, Pete, is that what they do currently for, not for felony level domestic violence? I mean, I assume, we already have a process, right? And then, so that's one, and two, again, the counties do this with every other city, so they've got to have a process in place. And I understand we're the only ones with a court or
We're the only ones with a detention facility. So, yeah, so in Arapahoe County, all the other cities drive to Centennial every time they arrest somebody. They do have a process. Right now, we're booking everybody into our, and correct me if I'm wrong, Candace, but we're putting everybody into our booking system. They get the paperwork, and when it goes to Arapahoe County, they have to wait. If they have 6 people on the bus, when they get to Arapahoe County, they have to wait for all 6 of those people to go through the entire booking process. And so what we're trying to do is trying to limit that, doing at the detention facility, doing a direct, like I said, so officers aren't driving all over time. But yeah, there is a process, but that's one of the things one of the comments that I heard from the county was, if we're not going to do domestic violence and we want to do like what every other city does, they're going to treat us like every other city and make us direct book. So we're trying to figure out a way to make that easier for us.
Yeah, I think when, when we go in and we book them in Arapahoe or Adams, it's, 2 to 4 hours, if we're lucky. So, that's one of the things we want to avoid with the police officers.
And just, is this going to increase the cost to us in terms of transportation for complying with the no bond hold 48-hour requirement for?
From a legal perspective, no, because what's happening is you're cutting out the dual booking. So if we, if an officer is down south and arrests somebody in Arapahoe County, I think the police department, and I don't want to speak for Chief Chamberlain, but I think they can make the decision to direct book. If they want to go to Arapahoe County, it's only state charges, they can do that. But if it's got the mix, where we have city charges and state charges, so that's kind of what and there's some, with the sheriff's office taking over, what's the city up there that they took over that's in Adams County? But yeah, they think that maybe we can work out a relationship that if they could drop off, I think they arrest 1 or 2 people out of there a month. But instead of having their deputies drive all the way down to Centennial, they're thinking that we could work out an agreement where they could just drop them off at our detention facility, and we could work out a deal there and have the terminals there to kind of streamline the process.
Okay, any further questions of the court administrator? And thank you. Judicial, Judge Day.
Good morning. Candace already answered all the questions. But happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions of the court administrator, questions of judicial, Judge Day.
And I guess I would just ask if you have anything to add in terms of the court process and complying with the state legislation related to DVs and VRA crimes with moving DVs out of our court.
Nothing more really than what's already been discussed. And I know Sheriff Claps, he's mentioned both in our meeting and to me directly about his concerns about remote booking, but I think those conversations still need to take place, similar to what we've had with Arapahoe County. We haven't had any discussions yet with Sheriff Weekly down in Douglas County, so we need to have those conversations as well. So we're hopeful that we can get uniformity between the three counties.
Councilmember Lawson and then Councilmember Bergen.
Councilmember Bergen's first. Where are we on the HART program? In terms of timeline?
We paused for just a second so that Chief Chamberlain can come on board. And we wanted to get coordination with Chief Chamberlain, talk to him about his great experiences that he's had in similar programs, so that we can coordinate with him and his team and have a dedicated team for the HART program. So we paused it for just a minute to onboard Chief Chamberlain. We've had some real good conversations, but we need to get down to the details of it. So my long answer is it's paused for just a minute, but we're still hopeful that we'll get it up and running very, very soon.
And as well as implementing the new, well, there's some questions about our trespass policy that need to be ironed out, but implementing the new trespass policy as well that goes with the new court on sheltered homelessness. Okay, Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. So Judge Day, in regards to the modernization that, with the legislation, I know that they have the stakeholder groups. What's the update on that? Because I know that would be helpful in terms of what we're doing now in transition. Okay, and I know you presented Pfizer, but we haven't, I just wanted to know if there are any updates on that and movement.
State Judicial, they rotated out the former Chief Justice, Justice Boatwright, and Justice Marquez is now the Chief Justice. We've had conversations. She's very, very interested in coordinating and working together with municipal courts, not just Aurora, but all municipal courts. when they, because they're in transition of building their case, they're updating their case management system too, so you can imagine what type of project that will be. We're all soon to be 23 judicial districts and the 64 counties. But they are in process of updating their case management system. And she is very interested in sharing the data between municipal courts and the state courts. As it relates back to what we're doing with our internal case management system by keeping it in-house and having the ability to specifically integrate and have conversations with state judicial in their update and upgrade with their case management system, it will also, I believe, reduce the costs. Instead of buying something off the shelf that may have some difficulty in communicating and integration with the state system. So our IT team is in constant contact with different state stakeholders, and so we'll be able to coordinate with them. So where are we? We're in that build-out process. Our IT team has done an amazing job, specifically building to our specific needs, even my requests. And so the system that they're in the process of building will be top-notch.
But there is some coordination with the state.
Yeah.
That was my main question. Okay.
They have not, and although Chief Justice Marquez was very interested in seeing the work of the data sharing task force, she wasn't familiar with it in our conversation. She was going to get the report. She wants, and she's very interested in following through with the next steps of that, of what the data sharing task force put together. Great. Thank you.
Mayor.
Further questions of judicial, Councilmember Coons?
So do we know when that is going to go live? Maybe that's Candace again, maybe that's Judge Day?
Our system?
Yeah.
Optimistically, sometime probably in 2025.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're rolling out parts of it, so
Yep.
we're going to be going to e-filing. We're working on that on the 10th, so we're working on parts. We are also totally, everything that is in the file is in the system, so we're like right on the edge of going, flipping the switch. So we just have a few things to work out with the judicial team because the processes are going to change, but we're taking the steps. So the first thing will be the electronic filing as we work through, and as well as the access, because that's transparency is important to us. So those are the things that we're working on first.
Further questions of judicial, Councilmember Coons?
No, sorry. So going back to the Hart Court, I didn't see anything about legal counsel for defendants. So is jail being waived in this process? And if so, what is the cost impact of waiving jail?
Since it's a true diversion program, if the person elects and volunteers to participate in the program, they will immediately be diverted from the criminal process, the criminal justice process, and be put into the HARP program. They'll be out of custody, so the legal requirements for counsel wouldn't be necessary.
And if they either ask for counsel or elect to hire a defense attorney, would that make them ineligible for the program?
No, not necessarily. We don't want to close the door on somebody who, after getting the advice of counsel, decides that they want to participate in the program. We'll absolutely keep that going.
Okay, but jail is waived completely.
Because they'll be diverted, and if they elect to participate in the program and they're not successful and then they come back into the system, it would be left to the city attorney's decision as to how they wanted to prosecute that case.
Okay. And then at that point, whatever counsel they may be entitled to.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Further questions of judicial related to their budget? Thanks.
Okay.
Public defender?
Good morning, I'm over here, I'm away. I have nothing additional to add, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions of public defender? Seeing none, thank you. Roberto Venegas.
Here for questions, I have, my departments are here, communications, IT, finance, housing and community services, and human resources. We can take them as a group, we can take them individually, over your preference. As we
Let's go
discussed.
ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and do it individually.
Okay, communications.
Communications. Councilmember Morgan.
How many FTEs do we have in communication currently?
27 is our time interview.
How many?
26.5, one half-time year.
Okay. Thanks.
Communication, okay.
And that's 5 divisions.
Okay, questions of
Right.
communications.
Oh, can I follow up?
Councilmember Burke.
So I know police has a communications person. Is that then under that category or are they separate?
Yeah, they have a public affairs group. There's one sworn officer in there, and then they have some civilian folks as well. But there's a lot of coordination that happens with PD, fire, and 911 as well.
Okay, and so in your communications department, you also have PR?
We have 3 people in media relations full-time, and then we have public relations that do the website, which is 800 pages of text. We manage social media 24/7, 7 days a week, and we do newsletters, print and digital communications, internal communications out of the public relations group, and that's 4 individuals.
And then do we have anyone specific for crisis management?
Everybody. The media folks and myself and the public relations group work in tandem on that. So whenever we have a crisis and need to stand up a joint information center, for instance, we're working with our public safety agencies and also Office of Emergency Management, but that's something that our team all pull together. There are other communication staff that are in the city, but their roles are different, and we have a coordinating meeting once a month.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions on communication? Thank you. Finance? Questions of finance? Thanks, great job. Housing and Community Services.
Questions? Well, I'm sorry, can we have finance back, please? Thank you. Why a $20 million increase proposed budget to 2025?
We transferred risk management into the finance department from HR.
Risk management was previously in.
So that will
HR.
reflect on HR's budget? Correct.
Yes.
That will reflect, so $20 million less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I will wait till we get there. Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions of finance? Seeing none. Okay, Housing and Community Services.
Questions?
Questions of Housing and Community Services?
Oh, well, hold on a second.
We lost one of our pallet home communities,
That's true.
and so we're down to one as an interim until we stand up the Navigation Resource Center.
Yeah, Restoration Christian Ministries is getting ready to start construction towards the end of the year on a senior affordable housing project, which impacted the pallet home site. So that's the reason for closure, along with funding it for a whole nother year.
I think what I may do is have a study session item over the length of stays there, because we're going to have to, when we stand up the hard
Yes.
court, we're going to have to accommodate those people. Councilmember Burke.
So now that we don't have the Day Resource Center, are we ready with the Navigation Center to stand that up?
No, so Advance took over operations of the Day Resource Center as of last Monday. They're gonna start operating coming this week. And they're also working on a plan for, they'll definitely be doing cold weather overnight shelter there, and they're working on a plan for a few of the winter months to be open every night as well to accommodate some of the gap between Comitas switching just to families as well as losing the pallet shelter site. But the navigation campus will likely start some operations late spring. They're getting moved in, we're getting renovations started towards the beginning of the year, and then with full functioning, hopefully late fall next year.
Okay, and then at that point, the Day Resource Center,
Will
everything moves.
completely go away, yes. So, yeah.
Okay, what happens to that building?
So that is on the radar for sure, to work with our real property team, as well as the university, the FRA, all the folks to see what we want to do with that piece of property.
So that building came to us as part of the closure, as part of the closure of the Fitzsimmons campus, and so when it came over with deed restrictions that property in particular must be used for public safety reasons, and so really there are limitations right now. Now, you always can approach the federal government and ask for literally an act of Congress to remove those deed restrictions. There's a process for that, so that is, and certainly the other properties that surround the Day Resource Center that we've knocked those buildings down that used to be the training center have those same restrictions. They have to be used for law enforcement, public safety law enforcement purposes. So I think we
own those?
Yes, ma'am.
Currently?
Yes, ma'am.
The ones that surround Day
Yes.
Resource Center?
Probably would be best, this is built as a temporary building, it was never built. Councilmember Jaworski.
Well, so if that's the case, and it's built as a temporary building, then I don't know if you're, maybe going down the road that we just tear down, but if we don't, and it has to be used for law enforcement purposes, it has been a big concern for PD for a number of years. I don't even know what to call the building, the building at District 1 that houses.
The Quonset hut.
Yeah, whatever the heck that is. That is falling apart, and we need space for more emergency vehicles. So maybe we can look into, it's not very expensive to put a rolling garage door on a building. And so if that is what it has to be used for as law enforcement, I am sure the PD would appreciate extra space.
Yep.
So on our contract, it's 32 degrees activates the cold weather, is that where we're at?
I think it's,
There's no precipitation.
right, it depends if it's precipitating, right? So I think it's 32 in wet and 28 or 25 in dry.
Okay, what is Denver's policy?
I think it's similar. And their setup is a little bit different because they have so many shelters that are just activated all the time that, their cold weather response is not quite the same as how we've done it.
Okay. Further questions for Housing Community Services?
I'm sorry, how much more time do we have with the power shelters at RCO?
They're closed.
They're totally closed.
The 25th, yep, they closed and folks transitioned out. And, we'll be taking them down and then moving them for storage over to the navigation campus at this point. But they'll be flat on the pallet, like deconstructed.
The people that got displaced there are staying in the area and problematic for some of the businesses there. Councilmember Hancock.
That was my question there. We're happening to those people that are congregating in those spaces.
Some got housed with vouchers, some moved over to the Peoria site, and some, had to seek shelter somewhere else. But the case managers did work with each individual, and we've been slowly not placing new folks in there for about 2 months. So there was actually about 20 people remaining when we closed it.
Are the pallets?
And I will just speak to the camps that are around there had been there already. We've been working with the businesses and things. I know you've visited with some of them. So it's not just because of the pallet closure. That's just sort of a hot area, the Chambers and 6th Avenue area. We constantly have camps in that area to begin with.
So, can I have another question? Please. So the pallet shelters that are going to be going to the navigation campus, are they going to be stood up over there or no? They're
Not
just
at
going to be
this time.
stored?
Right, they're just going to be stored there.
Councilmember George?
So, I mean, this could potentially create a problem, although the Supreme Court rule was changed that we do not have to have a bed for somewhere to go to abate them. However, you know, if there's children involved, some things like that, can we look into possibly, until we have the navigation center open, can we look into bus tickets to one of the Denver shelters that operate at all times?
Well, I think that's a policy discussion we can have.
I will say our outreach specialists do offer shelter in other places, and people do get placed. And, you know, sometimes they'll transfer folks over. Salvation Army, actually, for families, has a pretty robust shelter in Denver, and so folks do get
They'll
placed
take them
in
on their
Denver.
own? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes, can you tell me, Jessica, again, and I know I'm looking at the Housing Community Development, CDBG funds, which are used for, because they're federal funds as well, is that for rental assistance and things like that?
We don't use CDBG funds for rental assistance. It's typically used for rehabbing, so preserving affordable housing. It can be used for acquisition of land for affordable housing. It can be used for site improvements, some programmatic things, but we do not use any of our CDBG money for rental assistance. We did have a rental assistance program, which was Department of Treasury money that was COVID related over the past few years. We're done with that.
So what part of the budget, I'm sorry, what part of the budget are you using rental assistance?
We don't have anything that's straight rental assistance.
But what part of your budget did that come out of? Before?
For the Department of Treasury money?
For rental assistance.
So the rental assistance program was a temporary program during COVID, and it was through Department of Treasury money, which was within community development, but it was not HUD funds.
So the other one we often see on rental assistance, you want to talk a little bit about the Flex
The
Fund?
Flex Fund, the Flex Fund is marijuana funds, which is in the homelessness area, if you're looking at the budget pages. And that is used for down payment assistance, essentially like your deposit assistance. And sometimes in an eviction prevention scenario, we may cover a month of rent, or we may cover a hotel stay. If someone has a lease, say, starting on the 1st and it's the 15th of the month, they have to be working with a case manager to access the Flex Fund, but it's not covering multiple months of rental assistance.
Hard to see there. Just one more question, sorry. So how much money, I'm just looking at this page from your budget, how much is in the Flex Fund?
$550,000.
Okay, and how much have you used?
So we portion it out an equal amount over 12 months, and so that we don't burn through all the money at the beginning of the year. And so each, on the 1st of the month, we open up whatever that portion is, so whatever 550 divided by 12 is.
Okay, so for the, Mark, Mayor, I'm sorry. So for the Nome apartments and those, did you use this money to appropriate?
We did not use that money. We used a different pot of money just because that was an emergency.
What part of money you used?
I think we just used fund balance in that case.
Okay.
General fund.
Yeah.
We use the application process of the Flex Fund, so that's where the confusion might be. So when folks, we made them work with a case manager and apply through the Flex Fund, so we were vetting and getting as much information as we could.
But none of the money came out of this Flex Fund for the regular individuals who need this help?
Correct, and that's why we didn't want to use it on the Nome, because we did not want to impact those, because it is heavily subscribed. As she said, we apportion it out each month, and typically by the second or third day of the month, that $47,000 is fully accounted for until the next month.
And then just another thing, so when we get to this fund balance, where in this, can I ask some questions on that?
I don't know if Greg, we've reflected that in the projection yet or not.
I'm sorry.
Where on this agenda can I ask questions about this fund balance?
The fund balance for, I'm sorry.
For the general fund? Yeah, general fund fund balance.
Did I miss that?
You do it right now?
Okay, I'll just we can move forward. I'm sorry.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah,
But I do have some questions, so if we can go ahead and finish this one, but I do have a question.
Okay.
Councilmember Bergen.
Just back to the CDBG funds that can only be used for rehab and acquisition of land. So those cannot be used for the buildings that are, what's the edge and the other? the other building, I forget the
So,
name of it.
those buildings are not currently
Whispering Pines.
affordable housing units. They're not essentially income restricted units.
Right.
If a current ownership group, if a new owner came in and said, hey, we want to convert these to affordable housing.
Right.
And we're going to now, restrict incomes, and we want to apply essentially through our community investment financing rounds for CDBG money to
Then they
rehab the
could.
buildings, then it would qualify. They would have to show us that their plan is to do affordable housing there.
And that has to go through CHAPA or?
No, it would just be an application process, so twice a year we do that community investment financing round, and we usually we always bring to council, hey, we're putting gap money to these different affordable housing projects to either, rehab them, preserve them, build new units, and so that's the process they would go through. So we usually do kind of February and then July for that process each year.
Further questions? Housing and Community Services, Councilmember Coombs.
So shifting gears a little bit to youth violence prevention, you guys are reducing the FTEs in terms of those marijuana funds that are designated and set aside. What would be the process for working with pros if we wanted to enhance any programming there and providing funding from that marijuana fund to pros program?
So, the FTE reduction is really to pay for some of those contract services, right, with case management and things like that. So I would say the youth violence prevention program is really targeted at at-risk and high-risk youth, some of those violent offenders. And so I'm not sure what your vision would be around working with Parks and Rec, but if it was just general youth activities, it may not fit exactly the mold for the at-risk, high-risk youth kind of piece, but I would have to know more. We'd have to talk about it and see what makes sense there.
So specifically, their programs are for youth 13 and up, and we've heard from the courts and from other partners that 10 to 12 age range, that we have kind of a gap for providing both services, like community services, but also intervention services.
Yep.
So is there money available if we wanted to look at programming for those younger youth?
And some of the organizations that we partner with do serve the younger folks,
Right.
younger siblings. We know that especially, that kind of 9 through 11, 12 is definitely something that we're seeing. And so the funds that we have for youth violence prevention could go to a lower amount, right? The SAVE program is a little bit more specific to older, but when it comes to a prevention standpoint, we have some of those agencies that we have funded and partner with do serve younger youth. There's not we don't take anybody's, age at the door kind of a thing.
Further questions on housing and community services? Seeing none, thank you. Human Resources.
Gosh, look at that budget decrease.
Whoa. That's a good transfer.
Could use those funds.
There we go.
Good job, Ryan. Did you help the finance team?
It's a good partnership. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Human Resources, Councilmember Barger.
Just in general on recruiting climate.
Yeah, we're in a pretty good spot. We did, prior to this meeting, reach out with hopefully every single department head just to get that pulse. And I think we're in a good spot. We're at 3,200 full-time employees, so we have very minimal vacancies now.
I missed the question, Francois. Oh, I was just asking just in general how we are in terms of recruiting, good recruiting climate. And he said we're in good shape and.
Further questions of HR? Thanks, appreciate it. Information technology.
The department we don't understand.
You can say anything. Please. Questions of IT? Seeing none? Thanks.
brief break.
Okay, time is now 9:16. Let's convene at 9:25.
questions.
Oh, yeah, does it go into finance? Go back to. I go in
My thing is, in courts, I forgot to ask the question.
Well, I don't know, mine goes in non-departmental or finance, maybe. Does it go into non-departmental?
I think he's saying they're just gonna have us go through our questions and then.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna, okay, we're, session back in order, and we're gonna go back over some things. I think some people have some members have some additional questions. So first, I'm gonna go to Councilmember Coombs for your question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So Judge Day and Candace, we had spoken briefly about the need for additional interpretation services. So I'm just wondering kind of what that need looks like and what kind of budgetary need there might be to cover those interpretation services.
Thank you for asking the question, because that's a big part of what we do in court. There is the constitutional requirement that we provide interpretation when required. And there are challenges as it relates to bringing in-person interpreters from different dialects just because of availability. If you think about it, all the courts within Colorado are kind of drawing from the same pool of certified interpreters. Candace's team does an amazing job of coordinating with the different agencies that we use and bringing in interpreters. There are times, though, when we don't have enough interpreters for a particular daily need, and so it causes the cases to be continued, so it has that impact. That budget is a budget that we always draw to and probably beyond what is budgeted. We're usually over budget because of need. And it's really because of just, the immediate need of the court on any given time. So, it's kind of a roundabout answer. It's a big, important issue for us, and we're always looking to expand resources, agencies, and getting people that we can to come to court to trials and other needs.
So, if I could, Councilman Coombs, so what is the basis for that requirement? Is it, what I'm getting at is, it would be so much more cost efficient and I think just efficient in general to be able to do the interpretation virtually.
Yeah.
And so, what is the law silent on that? And if there is law, relevant law to that, is it statutory? Is it constitutional case law? What is that?
It's a combination of both statutory and constitutional requirements. For us, just like with the state courts, we're all courts of record. And so we try to do and make the record all that we can, the best that we can, using virtual interpreters for just about every dialect except for Spanish, which, because we have great resources available for Spanish and we have a dedicated team for Spanish interpreters with our court, all other interpreters, we try to use the virtual option pre-trial. The problem with when you get to a trial stage is that effective communication between the defendant and their attorney and the interpreter. They have to have the ability to effectively communicate, and that's the constitutional requirement. It's also difficult when dealing with testimony and interpretation through virtual services for the trials to create the record that would be constitutionally required, because again, we are a court of record. So we try to use, long answer, try to do virtual for pretrial and all pretrial issues, but when we get to a point where testimony is taken, either for a challenged motions hearing or a trial, we need to have the interpreter.
Has anybody tested that? Has there been a jurisdiction that's tested that to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge. We reached out, we coordinated with the interpreter offices for the 18th Judicial District, 17th Judicial District, other judicial districts. They're in the same position that we are. And you can imagine when you're talking about a felony level charge, because of just the requirements that I've mentioned, many times the state is looking for resources outside of the state and flying interpreters in to meet the constitutional requirement to have the interpreter present. So there's not a specific case that I know of.
But I just think it's something we should continue to look at, just because the efficiency of not having to continue. I mean, I think there's a cost to the defendant in continuing the case and continuing the case, as well as to the people. Councilmember Lawson?
Sorry.
Oh, Councilmember Coombs?
So just again, back to the budgetary question. When you guys are going over that budget, then where do the funds come from at that point?
Well, currently, we're way over budget, so we just find space, money from other places to cover it.
Vacancy savings and things along
Or,
those lines.
we move stuff from supplies or whatever we need to do. But this year, we did increase the salary for our Spanish-speaking interpreters, which had a huge impact. But we're always, as the judge said, competing with other agencies, so we need to stay competitive. So that was a big increase that we saw this year. And of course, Spanish is our largest, so we are way over budget. I think we're about, Jackie, do you recall? I think we're about twice as what we were.
Yeah, but I also want to say in 2025, we did add $30,000 from doing efficiency alignments and another $44,000. So their budget is going up to over $200,000 next year.
Okay, so if we find ourselves in that situation of still being over budget with those additional allocations, then maybe we should have a spring supplemental conversation rather than just kind of trying to finagle it somehow.
Further questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lawson?
Thank you. Greg, I'm going to go back to finance. So I'm not sure if I'm looking at F51 or if I'm going to the general fund section. But what I want to know, and I don't want an approximate, can you just tell me the exact amount that was used for the Nome apartments? The money that was used to help with assistance?
The exact amount of money that was used for
Yes, I want the exact, not approximate.
Two numbers there. So we spent, I think, about $60,000 on the abatement. We got, that was for the fencing, the board up, the trash removal, all that stuff. We have billed the property owner for that property, and then we spent, the numbers right now, we're still waiting for the final bills to come in, but it's $127,000 for hotels for the emergency resheltering of those folks.
Okay, that's an exact.
$127,000 is the number.
60.
Yes.
Okay, so my next question, part B to that, if these other apartments close, what would be the approximate that you would use for the same situation?
Yeah, so part of that is right now, that's why we've been working very, very hard to get the property owner to step back up and take over their properties, is because we don't want to have those same situations. So where we're at right now, there's been a news release that one of the buildings on Dallas has been placed in receivership. And additionally, the Whispering Pines property here has also been placed into receivership. So that means that the receiver is going to take over the running of those apartments. So we are hopeful that we were not going to be in that same situation where we're having to close the properties and deal with mass relocations.
Okay,
And
so just another question regarding the budget. So you're saying that comes out the general fund. And when I look at the general fund, we see a bunch of shortfalls and things like that that are approximate. I know that we have a balanced budget for 2025, but 2026 is looking a little different. So can you tell me the impact of that? I know it's just, 100 and, looks like, 187, but still, there could be some possibilities that we might have to use funding. So how is that impacting the budget, the general fund?
We in different funds and different departments, we project to be over or under budget and such like that. This cost specifically would have gone probably into non-departmental.
Non-departmental?
Was not project, or was if it was projected in non-departmental. I'm not sure about the timing of it. But basically, this happens all the time, right? There are always things that pop up that were unexpected, unknown. That's actually why we have the operating reserve. So if you think about our funds available, we've got lots of pots of funds available, right? The policy reserve, the 10%, the table reserve, the recession reserve that you brought in. We also have the operating reserve sitting at about $10 million. It's about 1.9%. And it's built specifically for things just like this.
Okay, just a suggestion, if this happens with the other ones, because I think it's important. I understand you say we have all these funds, but we also have, we're looking at, you're always projecting to us shortfalls. So even though it's this, you say, oh, it's just 180, or it's just gonna be this, it's still money that's coming out that we have to deal with, that we can't do other stuff.
Right.
So I think it's really important that you let council know how much money you are taking for this particular situation, Jason.
Well, again, and part of that's, we've recouped, we have an agreement to recoup the abatement costs. That's 60, so that will be a net zero. And then we're also going to go after the other piece of that as well.
Okay, I understand the recouping, but,
Understood.
the money is important too. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Jaworski.
Oh, yeah. I would like to go back to human resources. Ryan, the Office of People, Culture, and Belonging, can you please explain what these two are doing for almost $400,000 a year?
Yeah, so we've shifted that group to focus on the employee experience. So engagement surveys, yearly service banquets, yearly service recognition, all employee appreciation events. So they're really just supporting us with a lot of our initiatives that are focused on employees. So that's been really the big shift. This group still does support with consent decree stuff for training. So they're intimately involved on those stuff like bias training.
And I think to help the mayor be more acceptable to the council. I'm sorry.
Francoise, do you have a question? You can go.
Councilmember Jaworski, do you have?
She can go ahead real quick, and then I'll go back.
Oh, Councilmember Bergen.
So I think, I don't have my book, I left it at home. 392,000 is for the two positions?
Two positions, and there's some money that's set aside for supporting like Martin Luther King events. So a lot of some of those city community engagement events, they still do sponsor and help out with those.
Is this the Office of DEI?
Yes.
Yes.
Bingo.
Okay.
So this is just a rebrand.
We just rebranded it. Is
Just back to my salary question. So what are those two positions paid? Because that is a lot of money. That's like, we have lawyers that went to law school that probably don't even make that much money.
Yeah. Their base salaries, I don't know off the top of my head what they are, but they're within market. We do an annual market review, and
So out of the 392, you can't tell me what part is salary versus program?
I'd have to, Greg, I don't know if you have that up. I actually closed my document.
The 2025 budget's actually $370,000. $273 of that is personal services, and about $100,000 of that is support. I'm on page F102.
I'm sorry.
Just real quick on the supplies, that used to be out of someplace else, right? I mean, we used to have employee appreciation events.
We actually moved the money over. It used to sit in non-departmental, and we actually moved the money from non-departmental over into there. So it is not new.
Let's say Councilmember Murillo and then Councilmember Hancock.
Thank you. I just, Office of People, Culture, and Belonging, is that accurate in that that's more like an industry shift in how we talk about HR more broadly? That it's not just human relations, it's about a sense of people, the organizational culture, and people's relationship and belonging to the organization?
Correct. There has been a shift over probably the last year or 2 years. And we just wanted to make sure we were customizing it to what we need within the city. And we're doing really a big focus on the employee experience. So we're trying to focus on all employees.
Yeah, no, I mean, what we need is, how we develop that particular department, but just wanted to make a point and get some confirmation that that is like language, industry language, a shift in the industry and how we talk about inclusion and belonging.
Right.
Councilmember Hancock and then Councilmember Jaworski.
So I'm just struggling to understand. For me, this is pretty much rebranding of DEI. And to me, I think departments individually should be intensely focused on making sure that community and employee engagement is part of their culture
intrinsically, and to have a separate department that focuses on that with 273,000, how many people did you say? Two people.
Making this money.
I'm having a hard time with it because I just feel like the culture of our community, of our city, should be reflected in how people do their everyday lives, and then spending a bunch of money, like $273,000 on two people engaging in this effort. I don't see the value in it personally. I'm just having a hard time with it. I just think it's a colossal waste of monies that could be used for something else.
Yeah, so do I. We had this conversation 2 years ago when we cut one of these positions, and I think then we made very clear what our position on this is. You can dress it up, you can call it another name if you want to. We know what this is. And actually the national shift that we have seen is people are completely doing away with their DEI offices, completely doing away with them. That's the national shift. I would like to at this time propose, can we see, what are the salaries? What are the salaries of each position?
Well, 273,
It's 273
297 divided by 2.
Are they making the exact amount? Because I thought one was the manager and then one.
One is manager and one is coordinator, so
Ryan.
139,000 for the manager next year, 2025, and 75,000.
Okay.
For next year.
What, I'm sorry, what?
139 and
Currently, it's 132,900, and then 71,907.
So I was giving you 2025.
And that is fully loaded, right?
No, this is.
No, those are just salaries.
That's without benefits. So those positions cost us more.
What about benefits?
That's without benefits. That's without benefits, right, between the total.
Okay.
Do you want to know the total?
Councilmember Coombs.
So I just had a question for Ryan about this. So you were talking about kind of the shift in duties to some of that employee appreciation and engagement. Does that also include the employee town halls that have been ongoing to try to get that feedback from employees and allow employees to comment on the surveys and those other results that come in?
Yes, we've integrated them to help out with, for example, the employee engagement surveys, the data analysis. So bigger picture and understand the DEI and the shift and that stuff. I'll tell you personally, as the head of HR, I have needs to make sure we're monitoring what employees are doing, how they're feeling, their experience. Again, outside of the DEI stuff, my need for these types of positions are to help out with that. We are having them, because right now, I'm the one who's doing the data analysis for the engagement surveys. I'm the one who's coordinating some of that communication with the communications department. There's a lot of work that myself and some other individuals are doing. So we took this opportunity to rebrand, but reshift their focus to really assist on the gaps that we have. We do not have enough support for employees, and I'm really utilizing these individuals, as well as a couple of other individuals. I'm pulling them from different teams to help out with these bigger initiatives. And it truly is focused on employees.
Let me ask a question quick, and then Councilmember Jaworski. That is, how much of their time is dedicated to, I mean, we have a number of Martin Luther King events we're talking about doing a Juneteenth event for the city, and there are other events like that relative to different cultural groups in the city. How much time is engaged in that?
We're really trying to pull that down. So right now, I'm trying to have them devote about 30% of their time on that external community events and really pulling their time more into assisting on all these employees.
Councilmember Jaworski.
Yeah, so that just brings me to a whole another question, which you just said, you're focused on employee wellness. The wellness program, which is also under your office, has a full-time employee, I'm assuming is focused on wellness. And that office with one FTE is making is costing $339,000. So what is the wellness person doing if these people are in fact focused on employee wellness and not DEI stuff?
So that position is part of our benefits team. So one employee has a base salary. A lot of that budget is going to be meant for incentives, wellness incentives, so more like physical wellness, mental wellness. It's part of our benefit package and all the offerings that we do to help employees.
We have 4 employees under another department under you that's called benefits.
Yeah.
So if wellness is doing benefits, if Office of People, Culture, and Belonging are doing wellness, and wellness is doing benefits, where do we go from here? What's benefits doing?
Yeah. Well, the wellness position should probably eventually be put underneath benefits. So it should be benefits.
Well,
and
we might need a reorg here or something, because I'm telling you, this roadmap here doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think the Office of People, Culture, and Belonging, I think, should be eliminated completely. 1 FTE from that department should be put over to wellness, and they should be focused on employee wellness and maybe not benefits that has 4 FTE in it. So that's my proposal, is to eliminate 1 FTE from the Office of People, Culture, and Belonging.
Councilmember Coombs.
So the programs that you're talking about are intended to address issues that impact retention and recruitment. Is that correct?
Every department has their own.
Yes, correct.
So if we were to eliminate the ability to undertake the employee engagement surveys and follow up on those employee engagement surveys, what kind of impact would you anticipate on recruitment and retention of employees?
It's hard to get to specific on the impact. I would say, though, there's less focus on employees, less services, less response time, less benefits programs for them, less information and data that we can provide to department directors, executive management. So we'd have to really cut down on the type of services we provide.
And so what are those services? Right, because we're having this conversation as if this is a culture wars situation, and it's actually an employee engagement and recruitment situation. So like, what are the things that you go and have these staff do with department directors to address issues that impact retention and recruitment?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just from how we onboard employees to how we offboard employees. So from start to finish, how much time, effort, energy do we put into the employees? You know,
Right. So like if a survey comes in with something concerning, if one department has a bunch of people that are answering a question in a way that kind of pops a red flag, how do you use that information?
Yeah, we use that to really drill down to see if there's any issues or concerns within that department. Are there trends within a certain supervisory group, a certain division? What's going on? Are they getting more training or not enough training? Where do we need to really focus to make sure that those
I have, I'm sorry, Councilmember Coombs, are you finished?
December.
Sure.
No, I'm sorry, I have Councilmember Murillo, Councilmember Hancock, and Councilmember Sunberg. And then Councilmember Berger. Councilmember Murillo.
Thanks. And I just want to confirm, how many employees do we have for the city of Aurora that you have to manage and address HR work for?
We have 38 and a half full-time HR employees to service the 4,000 plus employees.
So less than 40 to service 4,000 people?
Correct.
Okay, please,
I'm sorry, I can't
listen to the
hear.
discussion, please.
There's a lot of side conversation I can't hear.
Yeah, let's Councilmember Murillo has the floor. I'd ask everybody else to keep
Just
quiet,
to
please.
reiterate, I can wait. Sorry, y'all, I can't hear.
Councilmember Murillo has the floor. I'd ask everybody to respect that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Murillo.
Just to confirm, there's less than 40 FTEs to address human relations for a staff of about 4,000 people.
Correct.
I mean, I think I don't want to be in the business as a council of trying to micromanage. And I feel like we're on a witch hunt to try to find where DEI lives in HR. Diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, whether you believe it or not, is part of HR, period. I really appreciate that you are being mindful of industry trends and how you're reshifting and renaming. And it sounds like the function of the employees that you do have under that specific category serve a very practical and needed purpose for the work that you do to understand why employees come here, why they choose to leave, their sense of longevity in the organization, which is what you do for human relations. So I think it's silly that we're trying to dig into and find something that's not there. I'm very clear that it sounds like you're understaffed in that department and trying to even just be evidence-based and analyzing the data that you receive from an HR perspective.
Councilmember Hancock.
That begs the question, what did we do before 2023? How do we empower employees and help them grow and develop as individuals before 2023? I don't know the term witch hunt, how that feeds into this conversation. The fact of the matter is that the pendulum has swung wildly in terms of how we engage people, how we engage culture, and we have to be mindful that, despite what folks would like to force on us in terms of we've got to do this, this, and this. Equity means, equal outcomes with people that are not equal, from my perspective, and then trying to force this thing down people's throats. That's a whole nother conversation. But the fact of the matter is, you can call this whatever you want to call this. If it isn't really engaging and empowering employees to be better people, then you're just putting icing on a worm-filled cake to me. This is just, we're trying to understand what happened before the process. How did you help people be their best selves and represent themselves in the community? Why do we need to spend $400,000 on this when I'm sure that it happened throughout the culture beforehand? And how can we empower people to do this in a way that doesn't cost this kind of money? Because we're trying to use our resources to spend on things that are, which I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying. I believe that people, their fulfillment in their lives, the way they do their jobs, because you spend a considerable amount of your life in your job. And we want to make sure that people feel valued and important and all of those things that make us be whole individuals. That I'm not sure that that shouldn't be part of who we are anyway. Why do we need a special department to make this be a thing? It should be part of who we are from the time we walk in the door to the time we leave. Does that make sense? I have a problem with this.
Before we proceed, Councilmember Drzinski had a specific proposal.
Yeah.
And that we need to be discussing that proposal, and then we'll vote on it. If staff somebody from staff put that up on the board?
Well, there are two positions, we don't.
Yeah, which position, and then also if there's 5 votes in order for.
Okay. So, can you restate your proposal?
Sure. I think we should get rid of the higher paid position, and I think that the lower paid position should be put under the wellness program. If in fact that is what they're doing is wellness, I think they should be put under the wellness program.
Okay. So that is a proposal that we're debating, and city manager is asked to address this issue.
So I think in just terms of Councilmember Hancock's discussion there, part of this effort is, again, as we've talked to council going into the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, we saw turnover significantly increase. And so as a executive team, as your management, we have had a very deliberate focus over the last several years with understanding why employees are leaving, why employees are, coming to the city, why they're staying with the city. And so that is when Ryan talks about the employee experience, when Ryan talks about employee engagement, that is really what we're spending considerable time doing, really understanding what's going on with our employees. We're asking them, are they satisfied in their work? Do they feel value in their work? Do they trust their, supervisor? Do they trust their manager? Do they trust the executive leadership? Do they and those things. And then we're really trying to understand that. And then the Human Resources Department is tasked with gathering that information, providing that out, working with department directors. So this is not two people that are solely tasked with that. This is then, the expectation is that our department directors, our managers, our supervisors are taking that information, and we are meaningfully engaging with our employees to understand, do they feel valued? Do they feel heard and done with that? So in terms of that, rebrand and refocus, as Ryan said, that's really over the last couple of years where that focus was probably much more external in the past. And as Ryan has said, sort of with that rebrand and refocus now, they are much more focused internally on that piece of it. So to your question about what we were doing before, we weren't. And we saw high turnover. We saw dissatisfaction. We saw poor engagement. So as we've started making those engagements, we took a number of things out of that feedback. So this is an effort we're going to continue. The rebranding and the repurposing of these two positions is towards that. To the wellness coordinator, really is focused on a lot of our physical outcomes in terms of just smoking cessation programs, getting folks walking, getting folks engaged, trying to deal with folks that are perhaps overweight, a lot of other conditions. And the reason we focus on those and provide those incentives is because if we don't, our insurance costs are higher. There's known factual data-driven evidence that if we don't address those conditions, our insurance costs are just going to go up. So that's part of the reason for the wellness coordinator there. That's much more of a physical wellness. This office, again, far more in the engagement, far more employee terms of satisfaction. So that's how we've set these two positions up. That's how we've set the rest of the department up.
Okay, so I'm going to go Councilmember Sundberg to this issue, Councilmember Bergen, and then for a wrap-up, Councilmember Drinsky, and then we're going to take a sense of the council. So go, Councilmember Sundberg.
I'm going to pass.
Okay, Councilmember Bergen.
I think part of what we're talking about is just, it seems like an overlap of certain duties between, employee relations, Office of People, Culture and Belonging, the wellness program. And I think it's just trying to be understanding that we need to take care of our people and gauge their, their satisfaction with their job and so forth. But at the same time, being efficient in how we manage our city. So I think there seems to be some overlap that is maybe redundant, and then maybe that's what we're not understanding. Can some of these surveys not be automated so it's less time? They are automated. Okay.
Yeah, getting the results is automated. Doing something with the results takes quite a bit of time.
Councilmember Drinsky, and then we'll, I'm sorry, did you have?
I was just going to say, I'm happy to explain our structure if that helps.
But I think that could take, I think it could take a part of a study session. I don't think we're going to do that today. Councilmember Drinsky, and then we'll.
You said that going into the pandemic and then going out of the pandemic, well, first of all, that's two different councils. There was a different council going into the pandemic, and there's a much different council coming out of the pandemic. And you said that this was, we noticed a lot of turnover, so that's why this is important, and they're really focused on. Jason, that's a load of crap, and let me tell you why. Because this office was originally created as the Office of DEI. So the DEI office, Jason, if we noticed coming out of the pandemic, if we noticed there was a lot of turnover, and golly gee, we should really focus on our employees, you created an Office of DEI. You didn't create the Office of People, Culture, and Belonging. And are these two employees the same two employees that were in the DEI office that was created after the pandemic to focus on DEI and not, in fact, employee wellness?
And
is that true, Jason?
And that's why why we're refocusing.
Oh, well, you know what? What you just said is that this was created to focus on employee wellness, employee retention, because we saw a gap coming out of the pandemic, that we saw a huge turnover coming out of the pandemic, so that's why we have it. But in fact, this was created as the Office of DEI. So again, I would like to remove one of these positions and have the other one move to wellness.
Let's allow the city manager to respond, and then we'll get a sense of the council.
Again, I'll just go back to, again, the DEI office was created, I forget when it was probably created in.
Under your predecessor.
Yeah, 19, or it might have been, yeah, it was a while ago.
21.
So it was created under, as you noted, under previous council, under previous administration. So part of that is we continually assess the needs of the organization. So it was created for a different purpose, and so the rebranding and the refocusing now is dealing with the needs of the organization now.
But that's changed, because you said that we realized the turnover going through the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic. So just as of now in 2023, we realized that and want to rebrand it. It stands what I would like.
Okay, you made your point. Okay. So all
Mayor,
those in
can I ask-
favor of the Jurenski proposal?
Can I ask a question, though? We're going to shut off debate. When did we publish this budget?
September 1st.
So part of my frustration, and it feels a little irresponsible to just make on-the-fly decisions, because we're on a witch hunt for anything that smells like DEI. That's what this feels like. We've had since September, we've had all year to ask these questions about redundancies, if we want to be efficient. So I don't buy that that's really what's going on here. I'm really frustrated that on the spot, we're trying to pretend like we know how HR functions, when really the intention is clear. We want to, this council and certain members want to eradicate anything DEI. If that's your prerogative, fine. But it's very clear from city management that these positions have a very practical function. In fact, they are responding by rebranding and reallocating their time to something that this council will support. So I just feel like it is very irresponsible to just throw a bomb in the middle of this discussion when we've had since September. If you don't know something, ask the question in advance.
Okay, all those in favor of the Jurenski proposal, please raise your hand. Identify yourself.
Well, I think, hold on a minute.
What are we doing here?
I don't know.
Okay, so the new proposal is we would like to do away with the office completely, but we would like them reorged under another supervisor. So either under the wellness program, because it is very redundant, it's all very redundant. So we would like to do away with this office and the name of this office, and we would like these two employees put under one of the areas that they're supposedly doing.
I would really urge the council to have, I would urge the sponsor to bring a resolution forward.
Okay, do it that way.
That would, and it could be more deliberative in terms of making a decision.
Her new proposal is net zero. You're not losing
I
any
would really
employees.
strongly, I think this involves a reorganization. I would really strongly suggest that the sponsor bring it forward in the form of a resolution through the process. Okay, is that an agreement? Are we in agreement there?
Yeah, I'm going to request job descriptions for every single person.
Can I clarify
There is no proposal on the floor right now.
But something just happened. I want to clarify.
What is happening is Councilmember Jurenski will bring it forward in the form of a resolution through, she could bring it straight to the floor, she could bring it to study session, or through a policy committee, but
So Councilmember Jurenski is bringing the removal of a department?
It is not on the table right now.
Okay, so she's bringing something to remove a name that she believes is DEI and doing the city manager job. Okay, cool.
Okay, Laura Perry.
All right, good morning, City Council. We're going to go department by department. I'm going to give a brief overview because I do have several budget amendments that are non-general fund for the majority of these departments. So first, Development Services, page F44. So this is a new department that was created this last year, and their budget includes a financial reorganization and redistribution of existing funds from the Public Works Department and the General Management Department. And these departmental changes are done without increasing authorized FTE, so it's a net zero change. In addition, the budget reflects an addition of 7 FTEs in the Development Services Department to support increased workload related to development review, specifically getting plans through the process in a consistent and predictable and timeliness fashion. And so those 7 positions are plan reviewers, one building inspector, a GIS engineer, a traffic engineer, and a business analyst to support the administrative functions of the department. And Jacob Cox is here to answer any specific questions you may have.
Questions on development services? Seeing none, thank you. Library and cultural services?
Library and Cultural Services, page F. I have the wrong.
122.
Thank you. So no general fund budget amendments. I do want to note in the capital projects fund, we have $125,000 earmarked for several building improvements at library branches and a couple of our cultural facilities. And Ginger's
Questions on library and cultural services? Okay, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Oh, Councilmember Hancock.
So I just wanted to ask about under the cultural services piece, with the building of the second floor, the renovations there. Won't there, once that's done, won't you need additional personnel and to make those programs and things that you have planned going forward?
Yes, so what Councilmember Hancock is referring to is, you may recall, we've got $2.5 million in congressionally delegated spending to renovate the second floor of the Martin Luther King Library, which we are excited about. We'll start that project hopefully first quarter of next year. It's about a 6 and 9 month construction project. At this time, we don't have additional staffing to support that expansion, and so we'll be looking internally to figure out how we can close that gap potentially, and see what kind of reorganization or other ways to sort of stretch staff services given current resources.
So currently, are you anticipating creating new programming for that? Once that expansion is complete?
Yeah, so in that expansion, part of it is a maker space. Many libraries have maker spaces. This will be one of our first in our system. And so there is an opportunity for additional programming that we could do given some of those new amenities.
Will they be something that like the public would pay for going back and forth? How are you going to fund it?
So libraries do not charge. So this is something that we will be doing as part of just looking at the current budget and finding ways to provide necessary services to our community through the resources we currently have.
Further, okay. Councilmember Hancock.
What would be like the bare bones of being able to launch this out so we could possibly do this?
Sure. So we do have staffing models that our library team has developed across our system. In an ideal world, we would have 6 additional positions to support the second floor expansion of the MLK Library.
Councilmember Hancock, did you have a further question?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Bergen.
When is the renovation going to be done?
So we're hoping it will start first quarter of this year. I know Public Works has RFP on the street for contractor. So it's a 6 to 9 month construction period. We won't know exactly until we have that contractor on board. So ideally, so potentially it could be
end of next
fall, winter of next year. Yeah.
Councilmember Sundberg.
You had mentioned a certain programming name, I just forgot it, that other people are doing that we're not doing.
Oh, it's Makerspace.
So what is that?
So it's like 3D printing. So for instance, it's more hands-on, imagine like a sort of STEM kind of technology for young people.
Councilmember Hancock.
So would this be the time that I would ask about us trying to either look at trying to, this is my first rodeo, so I'm still trying to figure it out, to allocate some resources for this effort, or would it go to the spring supplemental?
Well, that's a good question. Councilmember Bergen.
Honestly, with the renovation not being done until probably a year from now, I mean, I personally would not support any kind of addition of FTEs at this particular time. I would consider them, but I just think we need to get through the renovation. So I don't know if it's the spring supplemental or the fall budget, again, where that would be maybe more appropriate to look at.
Depending on how we're coming out of the renovation. Okay, Councilmember
Also
Lawson?
too, in the analysis that you're doing for the employment analysis, is there any way that you can maybe put in there like part-time employees to kind of see, you know, you say you need 6, but I'm just wondering about part-time as well, and maybe come back with the 2 analysis of full-time and then part-time?
Yeah, so it is a staffing mix, I would say.
It would be a staffing mix?
Yeah, and
Okay.
so I think, you know, we are open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 every day. And so part of that is just, you need, you know, staff coverage, and certainly you don't want somebody on that floor by themselves. So that's just part of it, is trying to make sure that there's, you know, safe conditions for staff as well as coverage for a
Also
library.
too, I mean, for consideration as well, maybe it may not be something that you can open from 10 to 6. Maybe that might be something you should just open up to a certain time, especially if you want somebody to support this. 6 FTEs is quite a bit for full-time, but if you want to, maybe it can't be opened. And I'm just saying that should be in consideration. Maybe it shouldn't be open from 10 to 6. Maybe you might have to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That might be some considerations to look at.
Right. So, and just the second floor renovation just we're moving our adult services to the second floor, and so youth programming and services will be on the first floor. So we would have to really look at a way to truncate hours for the entire library.
Well, I'm just
as
saying
opposed
for
to-
me,
Yeah.
that might be something to consider because 6 FTE is quite a bit, especially with a lot of the other things, needs that we have in the city in terms of things. I would think you might have to look at that, and I'm just saying for my support.
So we'll bring that back to council. Further discussion
Just one
on
thing real quick.
library and cultural services. Councilmember Drewski.
One thing I did want to just bring up, Steph, with regard, you were talking about the MLK library. I know that Councilmember Lawson and we've been getting emails, and I emailed you, Laura. We're getting pretty lit up over the Mission Viejo library. So I think right now it's hard to say, you know, what library to go to first, because I know we're getting lit up over the Mission Viejo library. And folks wanting renovations over there and demanding answers. I had to call you for a lengthy explanation of what was going on over there. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
I do want to note, we are in the process of procuring a consultant to do a library strategic plan, library capital plan, which will help refine and cost out needs for renovations at our library branches and put forward a capital plan that will inform major capital initiatives going forward.
For further discussion on library and cultural services.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
So I just want to also highlight, like, as we're looking back, there were no FTE increases and really not a lot of attention paid to our libraries for years and years. So we do want to make sure that we're accounting for that as we're thinking about what we do for libraries.
Further discussion on libraries and cultural services. Questions? Seeing none, we'll go to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space.
Okay, Parks, Rec, and Open Space, page F-137. So several budget amendments within PROS. First, in our Recreation Fund, we are doing efficiency adjustments in response to the spring workshop earlier this year, where we are moving positions to contract. We're eliminating a recreation coordinator, and moving and cost shifting other costs out of the rec fund to other PROS funding sources that are non-general fund. We are adding 1 FTE in the Golf Enterprise Fund to support facility maintenance needs at our golf facilities. We have 4 FTE park rangers being added to augment 11 FTEs park rangers to improve coverage across the PROS system. We are having contractual dollars for private security and 2 additional mobile cameras that will float around various parks in the city. And then last, in the Park Development Fund, we are adding 1 development planning supervisor and associate contract services to support plan review and design of park renovations and new park development projects. And Mark is here to answer.
Question, Councilmember Bergen.
Just on parks, I believe when I had my one-on-one, you did mention mentioned that we're adding signage and cameras in some of the parks?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay.
There are other improvements as well, in addition to the mobile cameras, that we'll be investing in for next year.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Further questions on parks, recreation, and open space?
I have one
Councilmember Jerome.
question. Is there any way, and I don't know if this would need to come forward by way of resolution, but we have a lot of swimming pools, and we're not very good at the swimming pool business. So I was wondering what it would look like to offer other cities like Centennial with regard to Aqua Vista, what it would look like to offer other cities or potentially counties, just wherever they fall. And I'm not talking about the rec center swimming pools. I'm not talking about those. But I am talking about the random swimming pools that we have all throughout the city.
The outdoor pools.
The outdoor pools. Because first of all, we're not able to use them year-round. The maintenance, the upkeep on them, we struggle to find lifeguards. And at this point, just about every neighborhood, and it's universal, it doesn't matter if you live in an apartment or if you live in $1 million home, just about every neighborhood has a swimming pool. If they don't, I'm sure they have access to a swimming pool. Just what would it look like to sell some of these swimming pools?
We can do that analysis and bring
I
it
would
back
like,
to
yeah, I would just like to see that.
We can take a look at that.
Okay. Councilmember.
I remember when Cherry Creek School District did their presentation to us,
Why, the
they
pools would still be
mentioned,
open.
what is the pool?
What is Utah? They want to add one to Overland High School.
So they use it currently. I mean, I guess if you're looking at that proposal, I think they're in the bond that
They're going to build a swimming pool.
that they're going to build a swimming pool, but would they take over that pool for us so that we didn't own it anymore?
Yeah, maybe we can offer to sell that to them.
Okay. Laura.
We can do it. Yep, one consideration about selling parks properties, we'd have to look at the land,
Okay.
use how it's zoned. If it's in a park, we have to go to the code of people, but we'll pull that analysis together for you all and have a conversation for you.
I don't know that I would go over being on Delmar Park, yeah. Anything?
Well, regarding Utah Pool, we did speak to the Cherry Creek School District about Overland. And they are passionate about having a pool for Overland because it is the only high school where their students don't have the same access to a pool or swimming that the other high schools have. And that is their reason for it. It's not that they're not getting benefit from Utah. They are getting benefit from Utah.
Further questions? Councilmember Jerome.
Now, not having a swimming pool at Overland when I was there and using Utah Pool had no impact on my education at Overland, but whatever. Equity.
I guess kids these days are just more entitled to pools.
With a swimming pool.
kids these days are just more
Councilmember Jersey might have been a completely different person. We won't speculate on who that person might be.
I would have been in that pool every morning calming down, but you know, good thing it's all about equity. Nowadays, missed it by 20 years.
Any other questions on parks, recreation, or open space?
Well, that's running pools everywhere.
Okay. Planning
gas
and business.
Come to Aurora, we have gas in the pool.
Planning and business development.
Planning and business development, page F-151, so one budget amendment, and this one is the Development Review Fund for planning, and this is the addition of one senior planner, again, to support development review and plan review, as well as we've added contract support out of the Development Review Fund to support planning, specifically for UDO updates, which council begins seeing very soon, coming forward on process improvement changes, as well as housing UDO updates.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on planning and business development? Councilmember Bergen.
I just wanted to say thank you for all the work on planning. It's very important that we get that right with the UDO changes, so thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Planning and business development, anything on that? Okay, Public Works.
Okay. Public Works. So for Public Works, there are no general fund budget amendments with the exception of, I mentioned development services, so you'll see in the budget, the shift of budget from Public Works into the new Development Services Department. In the Development Review Fund, we've added one transportation and mobility project manager. This position is key and will focus specifically on inspecting traffic control and providing proactive traffic updates on the progress of our high-impact work zones in areas of construction.
Questions, Councilmember Jorensky?
He had his hand up first. Go ahead.
Councilmember Sunbury, I need to play the tape back just to see who had their hand up.
Not like we're looking for this punitive source of revenue, but how significant is the acquisition of fines from developers or contractors that don't meet deadlines in our city? Is that,
How much? Are
yeah,
we
how much
pulling in?
do we get from that?
I'd have to look into that. We'd have to get back to you, yeah.
Councilmember Jorensky?
So my question, all of these FTEs, will this look a little different with what I'm working on with CEO Works? I don't know if we have a final bid from them to see maybe what that cost savings would be on employees, but
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So there is not a cost savings.
Okay.
So for both, we looked at street operations and we looked at pros.
Okay.
And both departments came together and looked at a scope of work to support our citywide beautification efforts. And that includes trash cleanup, that includes removal of debris in the right-of-way. We get a lot of complaints about that throughout the city.
Yeah.
And that work will augment staff. So for an average wage, we broke that down. So right now, for the CEO work, it's $1,300 a day.
Okay.
For a crew of 4 and 1 supervisor. And based on that, that equates to about $32.50 an hour for those employees. When you compare that to street operations and to pros, streets is about $26 an hour entry wage and pros is $29. So it's fairly on par.
But aren't they charging us 18, whatever the Denver minimum wage is? So that's much less than 26 an hour.
I have not gotten that. The proposal we have in writing for them is $1,300 a day. And so we have further meetings with them to discuss the intricacies of the contract, how this breaks down. But that was the written estimate that we received from them.
Okay.
And we have that scope of work, we sent that to you, I think Laura sent that to you, so we can
I
look
saw
at it
that.
side by
I saw the
side.
scope of work, yeah,
We
okay.
haven't negotiated a contract or an agreement pending your approval of what you wanted to do, looking at the financial analysis. So that's the scope they gave us. We could go back and negotiate some of this, but their model is the four employees and a supervisor, so it's kind of a crew, so it comes loaded with a little bit of a higher cost, which is Laura's describing. But we have not made any agreements or signed anything until we had approval from you.
Okay.
Further questions? Councilmember Lawson?
Is what you're referring to, and then Mr. Drinsky, this is the beautification that I sponsored, so we have somebody?
No, this is totally separate. This is an outside group.
That's going to be working on this resolution that I passed with this beautification?
Well, I don't think it would.
And as part of the resolution, we said we needed additional contract support to really get in and catch up.
I understand that. What I'm asking the question, Laura, is what she's referring to, is this a company that you're considering?
Yes.
Okay, how come I probably wasn't notified since I'm the one who sponsored it? I guess I'm just not understanding how come I wasn't probably put in the loop about who was going to do it, because I thought it was going to be Bridge House.
We are also utilizing them as well, ready to work.
Okay,
Yes.
so can I be in the loop, Amir? I'm sorry, because I was the one who sponsored that, and I'm sitting here not understanding what's going on.
Sure, absolutely. We can.
Okay, so, but when does the beautification program start?
Brooke, do you want to give an update on where we are with contracts currently?
I don't have an update, but I know that we have started, that we have people actively working on it. As the Bridge House folks are the Ready to Work, have been actively working on it.
Okay, thank you for that information. I mean, as the sponsor of things, I think, like I said, I have said over and over in the 8 years, communication needs to be better. Because, especially for someone who has sponsored something. Because I'm sitting here like, what's going on? I thought this was a separate program, but it has a nexus to what the sponsorship that I did for that. And I'm out of the loop on everything. And people ask me questions. So we need to do a little better on the communication. Thank you, Mayor.
We can, yes, and we can add that to the monthly meeting.
Yes.
Okay, further questions or comments on Public Works? Seeing none, time is now about 10:24. We'll take a break till 10:35. We're back in order. Jason Baxter, City Manager.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we're going to start with Aurora 911. I've got Tina here. She's on page F16. A couple big changes in that department are when you look at the general fund, we with the surcharge increase that council gave us, we were able to make a significant change, move our call takers out of the Aurora 911 or out of the general fund into the 911 fund. So that provided significant savings to the general fund. With that, Tina has also done a very good job of getting fully staffed. Well done. So that's her and Public Works have done well on that. So we're continuing to work very hard on that. She actually hopes to be overhired here with her next academy just to allow us with some attrition. And then on all of our public safety agencies, we are currently going through a public safety capital master planning exercise to look at all of our current and future needs for our public safety facilities. We're doing a condition assessment on the facility, what maintenance needs to be done, what renovations need to be done, and then what are our future growth needs. That includes looking at a new 911 call center, and so we will have that probably first quarter of next year. We'll review that with council, and that will drive some of our operational plans going forward, not only for 911, but for both police and fire as well. So with that, I'll stop talking. You really don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from Tina, and I'll turn it over to questions for Tina.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So we are, as Jason said, he's covered it very well. We're working really hard to not only maximize our efficiency with what we have in place with people and technology, but moving forward, what will we need to continue to meet the needs as our population grows, and then addressing diversity, addressing our language barriers, and making sure that we're diversifying in how we meet people where they are. So, we're excited about that. We're also excited about potentially in the future building toward a direction where we're able to even deepen further our partnership with our police and fire partners to see what can we do to offload low acuity calls or low exigency calls in a way that we could help support our ability to provide some immediate service to people. So this is speculative. There's no plan in place yet, but just to give you a peer into my brain is, looking at, supporting the police department maybe through phone reporting, where we could help someone with a low acuity call and get it entered and give them a case number in the moment so you feel heard. And things that are like that, right? Moving forward into those deeply collaborative partnerships that allow us to really serve people in the moment, to scale, to keep response resources available for high acuity calls, and making sure that, because that's what impacts life and safety and well-being, and so we want to be a part of that equation. We are grateful for the opportunity to go through this capital master planning because it has sparked a lot of creativity in terms of where do we want to be in the future, right? Like it's about making sure that where we are now is solid, but where do we want to be in 5 years and 10 years? And we should start working in that direction right now. So the move to the E911 fund has what it is going to do for us over time, and we will have some continued discussion about this, but how can we leverage the number of connected devices, the number of surcharge points coming in as the mechanism that as our population grows, as device count grows, that we have a built-in mechanism to expand the size of the service we provide or the complexity of the service we provide, and it may give us a built-in funding mechanism to increase FTE in a way that is not burdensome or doesn't threaten to take something away from any other department. We want to make sure that we're supporting everyone's forward growth. So we think this is a way forward for that, and we'll be looking to build on that foundation with some additional discussion on mechanisms to maybe help that process be a little more automated in the future and help us project future growth.
Which brings me to my question on automation, and I know you've probably mentioned this to me before, but in terms of technology, with identifying where calls come from, is that
part of that capital improvement
Sorry, go ahead.
plan as well?
Well, not so much a capital improvement plan, more of a technology plan.
Yeah, so we have technology improvements in progress right now, a new call handling system that will not only identify where a call is originating from, whether it's wireless or a landline, but then can also help us to prioritize incoming calls so that we have, with all of the devices, whenever an event occurs, we are inundated with a large number of calls, which sort of takes our bandwidth out, right?
So
And
the
we
example I'll give you on that one is, so I know you all sometimes get constituents that are angry, like, hey, I was on hold for 9 minutes. Well,
And they all
actually,
called for the same.
they all called for the same thing. So it's AI. The call-taking system has some embedded AI that essentially says, okay, here's another call coming from this, and then it wouldn't pen, it wouldn't continue ringing. There would be essentially an automated voice that would answer the call and say, hey, it looks like you're calling from this, and it kind of tells them, we've got this, right? If it's not an instance at this location, okay, press a number, but otherwise,
It will help us to expedite the outliers, right? And so when we have a major event, that technology will kick in to say, are you calling about the crash at Alameda and Chambers? Yes, no. Are you involved? Yes, no. And for someone who's not involved, they're passerby, just says, thank you. Responders have been alerted to this event. Thank you for your call. Makes a record of the call, but we don't have actually engaged with the caller, right? So it's just that way of keeping that moving. What I think is magical about this technology, and I'm excited about it, is when those things are happening, currently we have no way to know that there's another call in the queue that is unrelated. It could be, grandpa's had a heart attack and they need help. And it will recognize the outlier and actually move it to the front of the queue so that we're answering that not in the order it was received, but because it's an outlier. So we feel like that's helping us cast a wider net and the ability to take action more quickly to intervene on those moments. So it's giving us a lot more control that we never, ever had before. Very important.
Councilmember Johnson.
With the full staffing, does that include or not firefighters doing 911 dispatching as they had to when we were at critical staffing levels?
So we have a couple that are still in play right now.
Okay.
Our long-term goal is to not have a reliance on that at all, but we value our partnership with those who have they've been steadfast in helping us.
Yeah.
Our focus right now is twofold. Number one, we bring people in as call takers, but it takes some time to develop skill sets and certifications for each additional level. And so that part is what takes the time. And so that's when we continue to need the help. But our goal is to increase our efforts in getting that cross-training completed so that we have more people available to cover our 24-hour shifts. It actually makes our staffing situation a lot more fluid and easier to accomplish, and then our reliance really goes away. However, we've been, Chief Otten and I are in agreement of moving forward as we, really move into tiered response and on our EMS side, like really adding some teeth to our long-term program, that our partnership would include having someone, like a medical officer, like a fire liaison, that is there for the sole purpose of helping to intervene in particular calls, like being a point of contact to also help us be more effective. So we've got like those short-term solutions, but the long-term partnership will actually improve our service level.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Councilmember Moreno.
No questions. I'm just really excited, and I've seen the use of AI increasingly, especially in like virtual meetings, to like take notes, and what a innovative and unique way to apply AI technology to help with the volume. I know I've heard over the years that one, especially major events, generating all kinds of calls.
Yes.
If people hear gunshots or a crash or, legitimately a big event. I just want to commend you. I think that's really innovative, and I'm really excited to see how this creates some efficiencies.
one more real quick, just because it was a topic earlier. Why don't you talk a little bit about translation in terms of some of that,
Yes.
that piece of it, which is another technology improvement.
So there's 2 layers of technology that we're in process of implementing. One is through our partner Rapid SOS, which is essentially a data gathering clearinghouse that interfaces with our 911 system. It gives us currently live caller location. It doesn't do the screening, but they're adding more complexity to that service, which is going to be an over-the-top language translation, detection, transcription service in voice and text. And so what it will open the door for us to do is be able to translate the information in real time and get rubber to the road faster. And it's also going to completely mostly remove our reliance on a live translator. We may need those for like ongoing like interviewing and investigations and stuff like that where you have to have long dialogues, but for the immediate moment, right? Like getting to the point as quickly as possible is important. And then in addition to that, our call handling system will also have built-in technology. Again, and this will be the first cloud-native service that we've gone toward in public safety in Aurora. So we're kind of bridging into a new area of technology in the city, which is exciting, and it could mean positive things for the rest of the city in the future. The call handling system will also do these things in text, RCS chat, live streaming video. It will help us with that immediate need. So we're building 2 ways to access it as a point of redundancy so that if we have an interruption on one side, we still have it available on the other and vice versa.
Other questions, comments? Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm excited there. I'm sure. I know, but it's like just having done like my fair share of navigating 2 languages, personally or professionally in different contexts, I will just say that like I think I'm excited about that possibilities, but I know it does not necessarily do away with the need for bilingual staff because there's a lot of, you can just imagine how many dialects, right? There's 160 plus languages in Aurora Public Schools alone. I don't know one person who can speak more than maybe like 6 languages, right? You know what I mean? So I'm excited as just like an initial step to see if there's like, we can route them to somebody who's available with that language. And even within a particular language, there's so many different dialects, colloquial, more formal types of language. So I didn't even realize that was in the works too. So I'm curious, a little skeptical, but I think it's just evolving technology.
So it's machine learning. So and when we first use it, there'll probably be some hiccups, but with the dialects, particularly locally, our system will learn over time. Wow. And it will get better at what it does over time based on the input of our language.
This is how Skynet.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that what we're doing can be a great use case study because of the diversity of our city, that if we can implement that in an emergency situation, then what possibilities exist for all public-facing services that we could supplement that with the technology.
I just have a little question about that. So is there anything kind of to, like, presumably it's trying to detect a language. So if it's detecting the wrong language, like, is there some input and some way to be like, no, that's not this. We're trying to get this other language.
So I can tell you with both platforms that they have, they've had a number of beta testing environments where they began from scratch and have been working through a lot of that. And so I think while it won't be perfect initially, we're not starting from ground zero when we implement the technology, because it will have had the benefit of all of the beta testers across the nation and that input. And then that being said, we'll have to give it a little bit of time locally for anything that's specific to our area in dialect to become quickly recognized by AI.
And that's part of the problem we deal with now. When somebody calls, we're depending on a translator or our call taker to figure out what language it is, and they could make the same wrong guess, like, oh, I think this is this language, let me get a translator for that language, and then that translator gets on and goes, nope, they're not speaking that, and so now it can be difficult.
Well, what about when there's like, I mean,
French was my first language, but I cannot understand Canadian French.
That's the dialect piece of this. That's
So I think right now
We
with
get 'em
both
tea.
platforms, we're roughly in the 140 to 150 language range in availability. It will absolutely handle our top 5 most common used languages in Aurora specifically, but we're at about 140, and I think as that grows, so will that accessibility, but we have to teach it to know that, so it has to be exposed to it in order to learn from it.
Anything else? Well, are you still insisting that when the mayor drops by that he becomes a call taker?
Yes.
They have a desk reserved for you, sir.
Because
They have a
that
desk
would be really
reserved.
stressful.
I have every faith in you. And, I think that, whether you want to answer 911 calls or even maybe the non-emergency line, just from a customer service perspective, you're welcome anytime. And I have instructed my entire team of this expectation. So I'm waiting.
No, I do stop by and I think you have a good discussion. I really appreciate all that they do. Anything else? Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for all the
Okay, thanks.
Next one is Aurora Fire, so we'll turn it over to Alec, everybody's favorite fire chief. There are some ads in the budget. In addition to some general fund ads, Alec and his team were successful in getting a grant to do some wellness physicals for fire, just given the exposures they have. It's really important to stay ahead of those, so I'll ask you to just touch base on that and talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure, we'll say that Tina's behind because we've already trained the mayor to drive fire trucks. Better step on your game.
I'll see your fire truck.
Have some fun with that. You can get them to you, but it'll cost you. So thank you for the opportunity to present. As super excited about what Tina's doing because what she's doing there is directly impacting our ability to serve the community quickly. And she's a great partner. She's getting really close to sort of climbing Maslow towards the top. Unfortunately on the fire department, and we're still trying to fill in some of that base Maslow stuff as far as adequate coverage throughout the city. So the biggest things that you'll see, we have 3 FTEs that are being added this year. One is going to be a civil position in operations, it's an EMS battalion chief, and then 2 are around some of the things that we were asked for from the community, which is teach us how to take care of ourselves before you get there. So community engagement and public information. And those are pretty critical to get out there to make sure that the community is connected with what's happening around them. We do have, I can talk about IT's position a little bit. They are getting a position, a public safety GIS analyst, which is really important because we don't have that focused attention on planning our work and really looking at how well we're covering the community through travel network analyses and things like that. So we're grateful that that was placed in the budget so that can support both police and fire in looking at our GIS needs and representing how well we're protecting the community. A big fan of planning the work and working the plan. You've heard me talk about community risk reduction, then you've heard me talk about the community medical services branch and how well we're supporting the members who are caring for the community. So the 1 full-time FTE, the civil FTE, is an EMS battalion chief. Also in the budget are 2 reclassifications of lower-level civil positions up to the rank of battalion chief. So that'll give us 3 operational battalion chiefs out on the line. Oversight, support, liaison positions, training, all those kinds of things that are associated with providing medical care in the community. So we're pretty excited about that. And then we're going to go through a process of a very minor reorganization up top to better allocate resources to where the work is heavy. And so we'll end up out of this really doubling the size of our community medical services branch by adding 4 battalions, 1 administrative, 3 operational, to oversee that piece of our work, which is about 70% of what we do in the community. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Real quick about the SAFER grant in terms of the firefighter wellness.
Yeah, so we received right at about $400,000 through an AFG or Assistance to Firefighters grant. This grant is specifically, we submitted it last February, so we're excited for the notification that we got it. This is about taking care of the people who take care of the community. Obviously, cancer, heart disease, those kinds of things are more prevalent in firefighters than they are in the general population. This grant will allow us to give our providers an opportunity to have what's called an NFPA 1582 physical, which is a pretty comprehensive physical, as well as a cancer screening that looks at 9 organ areas with an ultrasound with the intent of early detection. Because if you can detect it earlier, you can save people's lives, but you can also, if you catch it earlier, it's more treatable. I promise you, unfortunately, we will find members in the organization that are positive for cancer that just didn't know it. And so we're also working with our member services section to make sure that we have a roadmap laid out for people who do have a positive screening, that they can move through that process of diagnosis and treatment fairly quickly. So we were grateful for this is a federal grant that we received, and so we have a small match that we have to provide, but it's a pretty big amount of money, and we're happy with it. Yes, ma'am.
Co-responder program is mobile.
So our clinician side of that sits in Jessica's shop, so in Housing and Community Services, and then police has obviously the police side of the house for them, and then I think we're still currently contracting out for Falk on the ambulance and the medic that rides along on the non-co-responder model, so the AMRT.
Okay, so but that's in housing.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're fantastic supporters of us, and we use them quite a bit. Here, we work with them. I've ridden with them before. I've got another non-detective staff over there, scheduling another ride along with them. And right now, Tina and her team are working with us to try and figure out how we get AMRT actually placed on our CAD, and then so they're automatically part of a response recipe for certain call types out of the 1,800 determining codes. Which ones of those 1,800 does AMRT get automatically dispatched on? So a very good partnership with them.
Councilmember Duranski.
You're already laughing, Chief.
Uh-oh.
Because we know that you are, in fact, everybody's favorite fire chief. I hope your next pay raise is built in here somewhere, because I hear all things public safety, and I know South Metro's after you, and that's not happening. Ain't happening.
I did not apply the position closed,
Ain't
just to
happening.
get it out there.
Oh, I know they're poaching you. I know they're I hear all things. I know they're poaching you.
It didn't happen.
I know they're poaching you.
Thank you. They didn't get me. You win.
That's right. That's right.
Or lose.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, thanks, Chief. Thank you, Chief.
The next, he's been here all month, so we'll turn it over to Chief Chamberlain. There are a number of ads. You can see those in there. They are all civilian. I know we get questions about adding civil service. The good news is I think hiring has picked up. I know the chief is very focused on retention so that we sort of fill that bucket even quicker. And then I think realistically, we're probably looking at 2026 and beyond to where we could start adding some civilian, or civil service. Hopefully in this next year, we get fully staffed, and then it's beyond that we start talking about the ability to add additional authorized strength. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Good to see you. I'd like to just go down the list I could if on the budget amendment request, kind of give you an idea of where we are, what we're requesting, and the reasons why. The first one is related to the impound lot fee request that came from a council request. I want to give you some data because I don't know if you got any feedback on how that has improved or what it has done to a human's life. So basically, in the year of 2023, there was 302 vehicles that were basically released based upon the funding that you provided. And again, it helps somebody not to have to pay thousands of dollars after being victimized once with an actual car theft. Year to date, there's been 228 people that have been impacted by that. And so the allocation of $100,000 will continue to go towards that. Any questions in regard to the impound?
So it's just continuing what you guys have told us in terms of making sure that they're not having to pay for their towing or storage fees up to 3 days of storage towing fees. Now, I will tell you that we occasionally get some citizens that say we should extend it beyond the 3 days. John, to look at you, I think 99.5% of the time, people are picking it up within the 3 days. So,
and that's a motivator to pick it up. If we advertise this, if we can get this out in the community, let them understand that it's not a parking lot, but it's actually something, hey, we understand you've been victimized, we understand you've had a problem, we want to facilitate that, the council wants to help that, and we're here to do it. So again, I think extending it or doing anything else different would be not a direct way. Yes, ma'am?
You said 302 vehicles were released last year?
Yes.
Okay, and so.
Or supported by this
We're
the funding.
supported by the 100,000.
Yes.
So did we?
No, not the 100,000, the 1.4 million that was originally set aside. I'm just giving you numbers on what your actions put into
So
place.
yeah, so you guys initially gave us a slug of $1 million, and that was a couple years ago. You know, we've kind of just continued to refresh it. The 100,000 that we're putting in next year just continues to refresh that so we can continue the program.
And I guess that was my question, that it every year will just
Yes.
replenish.
And that's why I said, so year to date this year, we had 228 vehicles that were released, and that's what the additional funding will allow that to continue on.
Councilmember Moran.
Thanks, Mayor. So it was 1.4 million. Would this be, you just recently had the conversation about blocks, and I know in the past we've looked at trying to manage and build our own, and that's a significant cost. Jason, I wonder if you could just like recap those costs, and at some point, is there like a cost benefit here?
Yeah.
And what would be that point?
So, and I know several council members have brought up this idea that, you know, we would like to, you know, does it make sense to own our own lot, our own storage lot? So we've looked at that a couple years ago. There's a significant capital upfront cost associated with with building that lot. I think that's on the order of probably $15 to $20 million to build a storage lot, because you got to have lighting, pavement, all those things, right? So it's a significant development cost just to go ahead and bring that online. We've looked at it from a operationally, it probably could cover its operations costs in terms of what that would look like, in terms of you know, if we were to collect some of those fees, in terms of what it would cost for us to staff it. But it really is that capital cost that we have to figure out. It is part of that public safety capital master planning effort that we're looking at, just in terms of that total look at facilities that we need. So, you know, we're going to roll it into that, but at this point, just given that $20 million plus, we're not there yet.
So do other, like, does Colorado Springs have their own impound lot with the police and
I want to say, I think,
cities?
I'll have to look at John. Do you remember off the top of your head? I think Denver does.
Yeah, Denver has their own.
Yeah.
Is that what the question was?
I think Denver and Colorado Springs definitely have their own.
A lot of them just contract it out.
Yeah.
So they own it, but they contract it?
No.
So
they're like
tow
us.
truck will take it to their own location. Their CSI or whoever's going to process the vehicle is taken there, and then they'll release it. So that's another model.
That is consistent almost across most major departments, where again, they're contracted out to a tow service. The tow service will then have the yard that maintains the vehicles.
Yeah, something with the size that we get, it makes more sense to have our own, and so depending on when we get there, if we're not there now, right? Yeah.
Moving on kind of to personnel and staffing, again, we're looking for one data analyst to add. Again, the data analyst, incredibly important. They are really the driving force behind the agency or the organization. I think they're really downplayed a lot. A lot of data analysts kind of become more data entry. When you look at a crime analyst, when you look at data analysts, it's about developing that information and being able to put it out so that we know where to put our resources, where to put our staffing. So that's what that request is going for. Another one is a records technician. Again, we're looking for two on that, and that a lot of it is based on the increase in discovery and public records and open records that are requested. And we're also looking for 4 for create compliance quality assurance unit. I think we all know what that's in regards to. It's in regards to the consent decree of personnel to actually evaluate, look at the statistics, look at the issues that we are confronted with as far as the organization that have been placed on us by the consent decree, which focus on bias policing, focus on use of force, focus on contacts, focus on calls for service, and again, being able to have an analyst look at this. We actually rebranded the office name. It is now the Office of Constitutional Policing, because we are also going to look at the aspects of Fourth Amendment, how it relates to use of force, how it relates to contact, how it relates to the individuals that we are actually contacting. We actually instituted this, and I think you kind of see an example of this. The council made a request on registration, vehicle registration. One of the landmines that I saw on that was making sure that we didn't just pull over people of color related to their vehicle registration being expired based upon money, based upon cost issues. So this office has been tracking that. We have a huge increase now as far as vehicle registration stops, and we've noticed that 60% of our stops have been focused on Caucasians, about 20 have been focused on African Americans, and about 10 have been focused on
Hispanics. And so again, when we look at those numbers, that really gives me the faith and the effort to move forward on that so that we're not looking at a biased thing that we generate within some action we try to do to improve things, and we actually go down a rabbit hole. So these analysts, this request is exactly going to support all of that and support the Office of Constitutional Policing. Another request was gas mask kits. Again, I don't know the background of where their gas masks were or what the problems were, but you're looking for 80 units. Anytime a SWAT situation occurs, whether it's a barricade or whether it's a high-risk search warrant that turns into a barricade, for the majority of time, based upon if that subject will give up or not give up, if they remain in the location, tear gas will be used. Tear gas comes in the form of either canister rounds, or it comes in the form of deployment from ferret rounds or from shotgun rounds or from a sage. Different types of gas are used. Each gas, although it's unique, it has a different purpose. Somebody still has to go into that house, search through that house, verify where that individual is, and take that person into custody. That task could not be done without gas masks, and so again, we're looking for that. I know there's a request for 80. Our SWAT team is not at an 80 level, but again, if you ever look at a crowd management, crowd control, I'm sure that that is some of the reasons that this is in place as well. I am not a proponent of deploying gas at crowd management, so again, this is going to be something that will be strictly based for our SWAT operations and how that works, but I don't ever see that being deployed in a crowd control, crowd management situation, but it's still a tool that's incredibly important. Another one we're looking at is professional security service. It's a pilot program, and again, that's based on being able to have somebody who can go in, and if an officer arrests somebody, if they go to the hospital, if they are held, an officer doesn't have to stay. We can have somebody who actually watches that individual, and the cost goes down greatly. And it also allows our units and our personnel to go back out in the field and continue handling calls for service. Another one is a quality assurance contractor. And again, when you look at the cost on this and the position, it is specifically for the forensic lab. I don't know if everybody in the council is aware, we have an absolutely amazing forensic lab. What they are able to do, from what I have seen so far and experienced, and working with the deputy chief and working with the actual individuals, it's incredible. I've come from a major metropolitan city, and I wish we had anything that even came close to what the city of Aurora has. The benefit of this and what I've seen in a very short time here, when you look at gun tracing, when you look at network analytics related to gun casings or gun firings or anything, specifically back to the incident we had at Dallas, the shootout regarding the Venezuelan community and the TDA, we have been able to do network analysis which shows specifically where those casings are, who's used those casings, where those guns were at, almost get a trail back to the federal firearm license, which actually who sold those weapons, and follow that weapon all the way through a progression. So the work that they are able to do, how they're able to impact crime, how they're able to give us the results to go forward into court, it's been absolutely incredible. Another one is student engagement snacks. Again, when you look at our student population, it's about getting them connected with law enforcement. I think anybody over a cup of tea can build a relationship and a partnership, and that's really what this is for. Our SROs and our campuses, being able to give a child a candy bar, give them a cup of noodles, have a conversation with them, bring them into another area is incredibly important. I know this might seem kind of trivial in some ways, the 10,800, but again, when you look at the population that goes into a school, you can almost see the same population that goes into the community. You have the same issues. You have mental health issues, you have substance abuse issues, you have abuse issues, and you also have homelessness and hunger issues. So if this in any way can be a connection point for one of our SROs to build a relationship with a student, it's absolutely worth the amount of funding. The last one is transcript services for our internal investigations. Again, we are doing a major switch as far as our investigations, trying to purge out as much as we can and get the internal investigation process done through in a timely manner so that an officer does not have something hanging over his head for a year or more. With that, our investigators are dedicated to going through all those personnel complaints, making sure that we stay within the parameters of the consent decree, and also stay within the parameters of adjudication laws, litigation laws in the future, and also the parameters of constitutional policing. So with that, having somebody who can transcribe, write those up, it allows an investigator to continue to focus on the investigation, while the more mundane routines of transcription can be done that way. Lastly, one is a victim service therapy dog. Again, it's a big part of our victim services. We have a huge component related to that, and it's anything to build a relationship or a communication with somebody is to bring a dog in, calm them down, get them in a better place.
Do we have the dog?
We do not have the dog, but we are looking at a dog. So get that?
Would not have good as the dog.
Save some money.
Where's Youngblood?
Big issues, yes, ma'am.
But I have a question, a serious one, on car officers.
Yes.
So Ward 6, as well as some other wards, are in District 3.
Yep.
We are, ever since I've been here, 9 years, it's just a revolving door, and we're constantly lacking of car officers in my area. I don't know, I even stopped, they send the maps of who your car officers are, and I don't even look at those anymore because it literally changes like, every 6 months. So there is and I know obviously we're understaffed and we're trying to recruit and staff and so forth, but I do hope you will look equitably at the whole city for those resources, because I hear from constituents all the time that we just don't have, car officers to respond to situations.
Right. And with that in mind, again, I think that's where the technology is going to have a huge impact, being able to identify. One big thing that we've changed in the period that I've been here is we looked at our crime analysis, and we also looked at how officers are reporting, how the 3 commands. We meet once a week. I've changed that now to 2 times a week, but I've changed it with the expectation that when they come back, they won't only just report about the crime, but they will talk about what their strategies and focuses are to specifically impact that crime. And so that's a big part of what we've already instituted. That's where the analyst comes in. In regards to PAR, again, without question, we are struggling as far as maintaining. There is going to be a slight reorg of some of the assets that we have within our staffing right now that we're going to look to try to focus more on the outreach component, more on the intervention component. Our PARs right now are also doing a lot of our homeless outreach. They do the abatements on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays based upon which PAR they are on. We are going to supplement that very soon. We're in the bid process now. I'm going to pull 2 officers in that are going to focus specifically on homelessness. They will be attached with the PAR officers during the abatement process. The abatement process usually takes about 2 to 3 hours to go through for the contact, for the cleanup, for the connection. We're working with our city partners.
Can I interrupt? Because
You can.
I don't know any police officer that wanted to ever just be doing homeless abatements. I don't think they signed up for that.
Nope.
So how are we going to address that? I understand we have a need right now, but really that should not be a police officer. And again, there's homeless problems in certain parts of the city.
Yep.
And so again, from a perspective of having PAR officers be responsive to other needs that are not related to homelessness, I just hope that that's going to be looked at with a different model.
And again, I think that will, and I think as we get these 2 officers instituted into this, again, it's not going to be the panacea. It's not going to be manna from heaven. The homeless population and what they're contending with is huge. But what we're hoping is the PAR can spend less time on homelessness, and then as these 2 officers get integrated, and just so everybody knows, on council, these 2 officers are going to be on a loan for a 6-month period. And the reason I am doing that is because, again, you said it yourself, nobody wants to work with the homeless because they don't understand the homeless aspects. And again, it's like a lot of officers don't want to take traffic reports because they don't understand how to take traffic reports. They don't want to get into the details of it. They don't want to do skid marks and everything else. If we do this for a 2-month period, we can have officers go. Hopefully they can get the experience of working with the PARs and working with the city, other city entities, working with outside groups, learn how to communicate, learn how to talk, learn what they can and cannot do as far as impounding property, what's one person's goal is another person's garbage. And then we're going to rotate them through every 6 months. So hopefully what we're going to do with this is solve or at least address a problem, at the same time educate our personnel, and hopefully get to a point where PAR will not be doing abatement, because hopefully the department at some time down the road is going to be versed in understanding how to deal with homelessness, what are the options, what are the opportunities, and how can they effectively do it. Because right now, you are 100% right. Most people do not want to get involved in that. They didn't come here for that. It's more of a social issue than a law enforcement issue, without question. Like law enforcement has taken on the brunt of most social issues, we still have to train them and we still have to get them prepared to do it, or else we will fail.
So these 2 officers they'll be writing, they'll be empowered to write trespass tickets.
And that's another example I wanted to bring up to you, because trespassing right now, the department has been in a really gray area as far as trespassing. The officers don't have any faith in what can be done or not done. It's a very gray facility for them as far as how to do it, what to do. It's not because of lack of interest or lack of desire. It's because there's been miscommunication from the agency itself. on what trespassing can look like, what it can do. And so just yesterday, we rewrote the policy for trespassing, and we also issued a special order that's going to be coming out to all the officers. We're making sure that they have, one, a named complainant. Again, most of these, you got to have a named complainant to actually enforce beyond the reasonable suspicion. On most trespassing, these letters are signed. It has not been put into a system or a query system that is not in a book form. So it's very challenging for an officer to verify if this trespassing letter is still in place. So we want to try to modernize it and institute technology to focus on it. Also, we want to make sure that the posting is up, and then we also want to make sure that all officers understand reasonable suspicion related to the trespassing aspect. So that is something that we saw was without question a pain point. It's something that's been lacking, and it's something that we're going to start tracking now. And we're going to hope, what we're really trying to do, honestly, what I'm trying to do, is clarify it for the officers so that when they step into that environment, they understand what they can do, what they can't do. The gray area came into this, in my humble opinion, because the consent decree, and again, I worked with the consent decree monitor at length, talking with him and conversations with him. This is not a self-generated function. There is a crime involved with trespassing. That is the crime of trespassing. And what the problem was, and I think where the gray area for a lot of officers was, is that, hey, don't do that because it's basically self-generating. Because if an officer goes up, has contact with somebody, person says, I'm not moving, and they get involved in the use of force, that may happen. But it's very different than what the consent decree monitor was talking about, where an officer goes up and just makes a stop on somebody. He says, hey, I want to talk to you for a second. The person says, no, I'm not going to talk. They end up getting involved in a use of force. That is a self-generated. Trespassing is not self-generated. It is based on a law. It's based on a violation of a crime. And if it's done correctly, if the officers are educated on it, if the community is educated on it, knowing what they have to do, how it has to be a named complainant, how it has to be posted, how it has to be signed, then our officers will succeed, and we will start to track how many of these trespassing aspects we have and how much that has an impact on the crime in and around the area, and also what is the community relief, or how does the community feel about it. So that's one of the aspects that we're definitely focusing on, and that's where it's kind of all-inclusive in how we're moving forward.
Councilmember Morgan, then Councilmember Sumner.
Just on using AI for
Yes.
reports.
Yes.
So again, you hear from officers that have to take so much time to write a report. Are we doing that? I'm not on public safety.
And I appreciate you coming up with that. We just met last week. Axon is the company that we have in place right now that does all our body-worn videos. And again, we have a huge opportunity to use. It's not AI, it's really machine learning. There's a huge difference. Machine learning basically takes data and information and generates it into a form. AI actually gives new ideas or concepts to use with it, but it's a machine learning concept. They brand it as AI, but it's in its truest form, it's not. But what it allows to do is if an officer goes on scene, if they're having a conversation with somebody during a call for service, basically that whole narrative gets put into a place, and so it generates the report. So we are now in a 90-day, it's going to start very soon. We're in a 90-day contract with Axon to review this, to see how it goes. We broke it down amongst the 3 districts on day watch so that we have the number of spots that we can use for this. We broke it on to day watch and patrol, and then we also had specialized units that are going to be incorporated into that. So again, we are moving forward on any technology that I can get. Our real-time crime center, we just found the location where it's going to go with the help of the city manager. We have the equipment, the logistics now. Right now it sounds pretty, but it's not functional. So we're actually going to take it to the next level where it's going to be functional and the staffing is going to be there, and we are going to start seeing results in that. That's going to be in coordination with 911, making sure that we're not siloed, and also making sure that we don't have redundant systems in place that are doing the same thing at the same time. So we're going to incorporate those things. So technology is without question coming forward.
And that is budgeted.
Right now it is not budgeted. The Axon is part of it. We are budgeted drastically for Axon.
Okay.
But the 90-day test, and then we're going to have to come forward, and I'm going to have to talk with you about getting an extension on that.
Councilmember Sumner.
Thank you. Hi, Chief.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Not saying we have to do this or it's within our budget, but Colorado Springs, their homeless outreach team officers have a little bit of a hazard pay for their officers because it can be dangerous work. And just a little extra incentive, doesn't have to be much, right? They do that down there. And then related to the crime center, is that going to have like a shot spot technology, possibly with AI? I know the price perhaps has been coming down in that technology.
We don't have ShotSpotter right now, but it is something that we're looking at, and that's what I really hope to do, because again, what we do have is Fusus and Flock. Fusus and Flock both rely heavily on technology related to cameras, and again, we've increased our camera aspects as far as throughout the city. We've also been able to now start getting into CCTV cameras of private businesses. And again, that's going to be something that's going to help ShotSpotter.
Voluntarily. The business has to volunteer to give us the data. Voluntary. Sorry.
It's a choice, but it's a force multiplier. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the importance of what you're asking on ShotSpotter and that analyst position, they go hand in hand. We've instituted a new aspect just about 3 weeks ago where we're trying a new tactic on some of our major box stores to kind of decrease the shoplifting thing. I'm not going to detail what that is, but we put it out, and during the period that this was instituted, we actually had a decrease in shoplifting. We only had one event at this location. Again, it's not a fancy thing, but it relates specifically to the technology, being able to track it to make sure that something is there. And with Flock, with Fusus, again, that's what we hope to do as well. But ShotSpotter is something that I definitely want. I think it's a huge success if we can get the funding for it, not only from the aspect of responding, but the aspect of preventative and interventive. So again, those are two big things that I hope we get, so yes.
Mayor Pro Tem, and
Two
Councilmember
questions.
Jones.
Does it, Flock have a shot spot capability?
I honestly don't know.
I feel like when we did, I think we did the tour, or the presentation.
So we did. So yes, Flock had come to us. They did it. They did a demonstration. We sent them back to the drawing board. They set up a controlled environment demonstration, and they should have knocked it out of the park. It was a swing and a miss. So we sent them back. That's not to say it's a heck no, but we were out at the range. They should have been plus or minus 100 meters, and they were plus or minus 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah. So the second question is, what is the cost to bring a shot spotter? Is it a one-time cost and then ongoing, small, or?
It is, and this is, I know Councilmember Sundberg had brought this up, and we're hoping technology's costs are coming down, but when we had looked at it in the past, it's typically about $1 million a year per square mile. Per square mile.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah. So just when talking about a gray area in some of these policies, and you said you just updated the trespassing policy, I just hope, because from me, in my position where I see the disconnect and where I see the gray areas, is that city legal will give an interpretation, and it's either completely disregarded by police officers or it's interpreted their own way. So I would just like to see with that, doesn't have to do with the budget, but with your new trespassing policy, I would just like to see better communication between city legal and because I think that's where, because I think sometimes police will call city legal and ask for an interpretation, but then if they talk to their chief's office, they're getting a different interpretation. So I think that there needs to be better communication between you two in your new roles, both of you.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that's the beauty of where we both are right now, because we have that opportunity to build that partnership. And, even yesterday I went through a use of force review on an officer who made a stop for somebody who was drinking on the street. It was the middle of the afternoon. And there was a lot of concern about, well, why is the officer stopping? Well, he's stopping because there's a law being broken. And again, I think that's the message that we have to make sure that we're reiterating. And it's not just about the litigation. Again, if we don't do anything, then yeah, there's not going to be any litigation. There's not going to be any problems usually. But the problem is going to be, there's going to be crime. There's going to be social disorder. And so that's where, again, I think the relationship, the partnership between us is going to have to be imperative, because what I don't want to do, and I mean this sincerely, I don't want to have officers going out there and wondering, can I do this or can I not? And is it going to change based upon the person who's sitting in that chair? That should never be an aspect. Whether I'm in this chair, whether somebody else in the chair, the policies and the procedures should remain in place that substantiate constitutional policing, that substantiate enforcing the law and holding people accountable. So that's where I agree with you 100%.
So I'm hoping that you could have maybe build into the budget, possibly a supplemental, some sort of incentive for officers to stay physically fit. Although I know Aurora Fire Rescue has a requirement, without an incentive,
that you have to do every year. APD doesn't. And if you can have a mandate, that'd be great, but if you can't have a mandate, if there's no mandate, then I would hope that, particularly for younger officers that are on patrol, to have an incentive, because I think when they're not physically, they're only tested when they're in the academy. And if they're not physically fit, first of all, they're more likely to have problems, physical problems. They're more likely to get injured. They're more likely to have to escalate if they can't go hands-on, if they don't feel comfortable going hands-on. So I would really appreciate it.
It's definitely something to look at best practices across the nation. No question.
Okay. Anything else? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So the next one is general management. General management is a collection of some of our smaller offices. We've consolidated them under that. We have Kendall Coca as our interim director of general management. And so you kind of see here listed on the agenda, and I'll call them out. And then Kendall can either touch on them, or we've got some of the principals here who can talk about those operations as well. So if there's any questions. So we'll start with fleet. If there's any questions on fleet for... Seeing none.
Sorry,
so-
I thought you were finishing
Oh, no.
the sentence, I was trying to.
Yeah, sorry. No, so yeah, any questions on fleet?
I do. Have we been able, I mean, I see the allotted FTEs, but have we been able to hire mechanics? I know that we were really, really down, like scarcely.
Yeah, so I know it's something that Kendall has been working with Ron Forrest and then HR on. We've done a little bit of work around, we require certifications to be working on our fleet. There's legal requirements around that. Hiring folks with all those certifications has been a challenge. So one of the things we've done is essentially develop a program to develop our own, where we're hiring folks without those certifications essentially as an apprentice, and then we're bringing them up and trying to help them gain those certifications. So, but Ken, do you want to give a little quick update in terms of the broader on that?
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of hires that have been brought in. We had some overhires, I think, last year with Marshall Brown Water helping us with that. So we did have a couple of overhires, and we're consistently trying to get to our trade shows, to the kids, to the schools, to Pickens Tech, to, I think you had mentioned last year that we had talked about innovations, and we had just gone there. Ron had just had some conversations with them a couple of weeks ago. So we're trying to continually get into the schools, bring some kids in, help with the apprenticeships, and keep the hiring going.
How about contracting for higher echelon maintenance?
So we do that. It's one of the things we work constantly on, is looking at our workload and making sure that we're contracting out. I will tell you that not only are we under the cosh for mechanics, a lot of our private partners are, and there's been a few times where we've gone to our private partners out there and said, hey, good news, we've got more work, and they said, don't want it, can't take it. And it's been a challenge on that point, but we absolutely use that for major things. So when we're talking about major body work, major engine work, something like that, we will absolutely use that. But it's a challenge out there right now for us. Anything to add on that?
No, that is exactly it. Sometimes we're just turned away because they have too much work.
Just one comment on that. I would be curious to know how many we are turning away because they have a felony on their record. That's something that has always bothered me. So I would be curious to know how many we are turning away because they have a felony on their record.
Okay. So specifically mechanics, or just in general?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of these folks coming out of prison. This is one of their key trades.
I'm making notes here, so a lot of the stuff we'll follow up on. There's a number of questions. I'll add that to the list. We'll get you all that detail. Okay, that's fleet. That's that one.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So just, I know that in the past, we've been working on some EV fleet conversions. I know in water, we have some Ford F-150 Lightnings that are operational. Do we have the kind of administrative staff capacity to take advantage of grants that are available for charging infrastructure for our fleet, as well as securing fleet vehicles that are EVs?
Great question. So there are some grants out there for those charging stations. We also have to get some mechanics that fix those vehicles. We have to have that piece as well. So I think there's a twofold prong to that. We have to make sure that we have the training for that, or we're hiring trained people for that, and going for those grants as well. So the grants have been up, and we're looking at the grants and making sure that we have the manpower on our side to be able to consistently maintain those vehicles and charging stations as they come.
Further questions? Okay, so that's fleet. Next one we'll jump over to is the city manager's office. I've got any questions for me, Roberto, Laura? I'll put it up there. Okay, next one we'll go to city clerk. So I see Katie sitting in the back row, sort of there you go. So questions for Katie.
Hi, Katie. Last year, we talked about the campaign finance reporting system that was going to be, I think, tweaked or changed.
Right, so we implemented Civics, which is the campaign finance system. What we're looking at next is the code for campaign finance, because that needs to be updated in order for us to make any changes to this software system. So we are working on right now. Thanks.
Next one, I'm sorry, is internal audit. So where's Michelle's right there. So certainly, council just passed a new ordinance, and so part of that was that you all definitely got to look at her budget. I'm not allowed to reduce it without coming to you all. I did not reduce her budget, but I'll let Michelle answer any questions or add anything you need to add.
I don't think anything to add. Same as last year, we are back to full staffing. We hired a new senior auditor instead of the police auditor, reclassed that position. We're successful in hiring, so as of September 9th, we are back to full staffing with 3 auditors and myself in the department.
Questions? Thank you.
Intergovernmental relations, that's Liz Rogers and her team. Liz is not here, so either Kendall or Roberto can answer any questions on that, but status quo budget on that one in terms of that's where we budget our lobbyist contracts as well as Liz's efforts. Okay, none on that. And then finally, we have international and immigrant affairs. That's Ricardo Gambetta and his shop. And if there are any questions on that one.
Just, so we have 2 FTEs, budget is almost 700,000. What is the details? What is the rest on?
So the rest, I think that's where we budget our annual service contract with Sister Cities. I think we do like $120,000 contract with Sister Cities for the city support of that. And then they also
Global Fest is in that budget.
The what?
Global Fest.
Oh, okay.
Is also in that budget. As Jason mentioned, Sister Cities. I think a big chunk of that is a Forest Service grant, the United States Forest Service grant they're doing in partnership with the Forester and Pros to help with some of those efforts. So I think that's where that dollar amount is, but we can break it out for you. That's not the personnel. Most of it is in program and grants, aside from Minsu and from Ricardo.
And is the Sister Cities, was that, we, the 2 of us have been on council 9 years, and I thought it was eventually going to decrease. Was that never a discussion?
I think that's always been a discussion and a policy discussion that the council has had from time to time.
Yeah, I know we've talked about, doing more fundraising on the other side, so I guess, that's a discussion probably for another time, but.
It is. We essentially serve as a pass-through. It is an independent
But
nonprofit.
has it increased?
No.
No.
No, it has some inflationary increases that we've had over the last couple of years, but it's essentially stayed at that. I think right now it's about a little over $100,000, but that's stayed pretty much the same since we had it in the Office of International American Affairs.
Councilor Jaworski, did you?
Oh, no, I'm just sitting here, just listening to how much we're giving away.
Okay, further discussion on that? Okay.
All right, so if there's nothing else on general management, we'll go turn it over to Marshall Brown and Aurora Water. Marshall is virtual. He wanted to be here in person, but I did not want to make the entire city council sick, so we've got him, he's recovering, so we told him to keep his germs to himself. We've got the cat here as well for anything, so Marshall, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Sorry I couldn't be there. COVID is no fun, but happy I could be here virtually. Most everything in the water budget we've talked about actually multiple times as we've gone through the rate and fee process, so I wasn't going to go through any more details, just kind of open it up, see if anybody has any questions. or would like additional information about any pieces or parts of the budget.
Questions of Marshall? Seeing none, thanks, Marshall. Go back to bed.
All right. Last thing, next up is City Council, page F24, and there's more detail on page I-37. Goes into that. No amendments, some small mandated costs, dues and subscriptions, personal services. Open for any questions you have.
Questions on City Council, Councilmember
Are we
Murdo?
getting raises?
In fact, there's going to be a cut. Non-departmental?
Non-departmental. Sitting over there, page F129, there are only 2 amendments in non-departmental. One of them is the other side of the police fleet item, where because the general fund is actually paying for that $100,000 for the impound lot relief, so that's sitting in there. And then we talked to you about the fact that we doubled our vacancy savings assumption, so that negative is sitting in there. I'll open it up for any questions.
Questions, Councilmember Drinsky?
This, the rest of the ARPA money?
Yes.
So are we, Jason, are we going to try and get that to the animal shelter, or what are we doing?
Yeah, so one of the things is under the federal requirements, we essentially have to have those dollars committed by the end of the year. So you all have given us guidance. We are going through all of those programs and making sure that they are committed to the projects you've already told us. If a project or program looks like it is not going to be able to spend, commit their dollars by the end of the year, we are reprogramming those dollars into projects that you've already told us to do. The 2 primary beneficiaries of that approach are going to be the animal shelter and the homeless navigation center. Those are the 2 things that we've heard from council. Those are both our biggest projects, and we think we have the ability to get those dollars committed by the end of the year. So that's what we're doing. We're not looking to add any new programs or projects because we have to have it committed by the end of the year, which means that we have to have it out for contract and legally obligated to spend.
We have a lot of money going towards homeless people. If we could get some more to go towards homeless animals, I'd really appreciate it.
We will keep you all updated in terms of how that breaks down.
Councilmember Burke.
So on this non-departmental ARPA FTEs, 2 FTEs.
Yep, and so that's the one we added.
These are finance, those are a grant manager and a grant compliance manager.
But we don't have ARPA dollars after the end of this year.
We'll program that into the 5-year. I think Greg's already got it.
It's already kind of built into our pro forma, because their job is kind of bigger than just ARPA.
The reporting requirements on ARPA, just so we're clear, the reporting requirements on ARPA are going to go for years. Just so we're clear.
Yeah, it's awful.
When was the, Marshall, are you still on? When was the flood? 2013?
We're still dealing with.
We're still dealing with the flood dollars that we got from 2013. The feds are brutal.
She's good.
Okay, one more. Snow removal.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's normally under Public Works.
Yes.
Is this the excess money that we?
It's a little bit of overtime. So basically what happens is that, you're right, that when we have a snow thing, a lot of people come in. Public Works, Aurora Water, Parks, a lot of people go in. The overtime, because it's not part of one specific department.
Oh, so it's, okay.
We use non-departmental.
And so it's I think it's all our materials too, so all of our dice or all that stuff, we charge it to the non-departmental. For Public Works, or actually any department, if they're on their regular shift, that goes to their home accounting center. And then if it's overtime, we book it here.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We're on capital projects fund, yep.
Okay, capital projects.
The next thing is anything that you want to talk about. We brought up some capital stuff earlier in the year.
So this is one where we've talked about capital projects fund. Laura touched on that in her stuff. But if there's anything, capital projects fund, we've had folks mention, this is also where we could talk about marijuana fund. We could talk about anything that you all want to in terms of the other funds that are out there. we've tried to highlight for you when we've done any amendments, certainly any significant amendments, but are there any questions about any of our other funding sources?
Questions? None? Okay.
All right. Very good. The next one is on, we use this as our study session. You'll see items 4A through 4H. This is under the ordinance, or council ordinances, we have to bring you the pay table and classification. This just kind of lays out all of the different job titles we have in the city, lays that out. We've given that to you in your backup, so if there's questions on that. And then 4B through 4G are special improvement districts, and they're either general improvement districts. I think most of them are general improvement districts now, right?
Yes, they are.
So they're all general improvement districts. These are areas where typically a neighborhood has gone out, they've taken a vote to tax themselves, so there's a mill levy to pay for a specific public improvement. Most of these are fences. We've got, I think, one of these that is a sewer system, but council acts as in an ex officio capacity to essentially adopt the budget for those special improvement districts. We use this as your study session in case you all have any questions on it, but you will see them as part of the budget adoption process. So any questions about how that process works or about these improvement districts?
Questions?
I asked
And then,
mine-
yeah.
I asked mine 8 years ago.
Okay, it's a little odd when you first see it, I understand. And then finally, the last one there is our service fees, and these are, where we do charges for service. So this is everything from our rec fees to our development fees to all those different fees. This is, you all do not formally adopt this, but we just provide it to you all to see if there's any questions or changes. Because our budget is built off of this, so if you're going to make any changes or you have a major heartache, we just kind of need to know because we've built our revenue projections for development and review fund, for rec fund, based off of these levels of charges.
Questions? Great.
There's nothing left.
Yay.
Yay.
I had 12:14, so I have about a 30-minute presentation for everybody on the bingo time. No, in all seriousness, thank you. There is box lunches. Everybody, please pick up a box lunch on your way out. First reading will be on October 14th. No, 14th or 28th, right?